Chapter 625. Many were able to tell from Di Gang's reaction that he felt rather indifferent. However, it was a justifiable reaction, as Di Gang's talents and plane meant that competition among nobles was rather meaningless to him. His current goal was to become someone like Bai Luli. Many were able to tell from Di Gang's reaction that he felt rather indifferent. However, it was a justifiable reaction, as Di Gang's talents and plane meant that competition among nobles was rather meaningless to him. His current goal was to become someone like Bai Luli. Chu Ji, you might have underestimated my son a little too much, Di Kai, head of the emperor family said. He knew his son better than anyone. Di Gang was a prodigy of exceptional talents, and he would have achieved great things given time, surpassing even his father. He might even actually become a saint and step foot into that plane told in legends. The emperor family, one of the two top forces of Alchemy City, cast off their ancestral armorer tradition to focus on cultivation, yet none from Di Kai's generation was able to overpower the Yu clan. However, Di Gang showed promise of being the one capable of accomplishing such a feat in the future, enabling the emperor family to replace the Yu clan and become the symbol of Alchemy City. Whenever anyone talked about Alchemy City, they would first think of the emperor family. I have heard of Di Gang's talents, but the younger generation from all over Baron State here are all proud sons and daughters, and the cultivators from the Holy Ji Palace were even known to be gods among men. As such, it would be obvious that I'm not underestimating anyone. If you, Di Kai, find it unpleasant, just pretend that I never said anything then, Chu Ji elaborated. There were many on the grandstands who looked eager to test their mettle. Seeing the alchemy conference underway, they grew rather restless as well. The Holy Ji Palace was known to be the #1 sacred ground for training in the entire Baron State. With the students of the Holy Ji Palace there that day, many were eager to find out personally how capable the students of said sacred ground actually were. When the alchemy conference is over, the youngsters can have it their way, Yuchi said, his eyes forward. Many turned their eyes away. The day was still meant for the alchemy conference, and since the city lord office was the organizing party, it was only proper that the alchemy conference was to be given top priority and everything else came later. Yi Futian shifted his eyes back on his seniors. He was still speechless seeing them work. While he felt compelled to defend his seniors in front of strangers, their performance was indeed a horrible one compared to others. Is the fifth brother cooking or crafting? Is he simply trying to dump everything into the pot and cook it up? Yi Shaoshi found the scene rather unbearable to look at as well. It was their fifth brother who cooked for them back in the cottage, and he was undeniably good, so much so that his dishes tasted better than a lot of the so-called exquisite dishes outside. However, they were supposed to be crafting ritual implements, and fifth brother seemed to have just let the pot simmer after dumping everything inside. What actually looked different was how Shui, their fourth brother, was seen helping out by absorbing spiritual qi in a crazed manner to craft matrices on their product. While it was obvious he learned everything demonstrated there in a crash course, he was still able to show that he learned a lot and some things he did actually made sense. However, what they were doing still had people wondering if they were actually capable of crafting any ritual implement worth mentioning. The base of crafting ritual implements lies with the matrices crafted. That brother of yours seems to be decent at it, but the ways the physical object is prepared are just. Well, let's just say that he is bad at the simplest process of it all, shaping. Zhongli knew something about crafting ritual implements, and he went on to comment at their work with a flabbergasted look. So long as they can actually make something. Yi Futian felt dejected as well. He was puzzled as to why his seniors wanted to participate in the alchemy conference to begin with. One participant after another stopped what they were doing, and many finished powerful ritual implements were seen before them. Top-class noble ritual implements, pulsing with terrifying auras. 2 hours were almost up by then. Shui and Luo Fan were still fumbling about. Yi Futian felt nervous and concerned on their behalf. Time is up. Stop whatever you're doing, a voice was heard eventually, and Shui and Luo Fan breathed deeply as they finished in the nick of time. They had actually made it. Anyone who failed at creating a top-class noble ritual implement, please leave immediately, the elder from the stairs announced. Many were seen looking at things laid before them, side, and left. More and more among the initial 3,000 were seen leaving, and there were about 300 left on the stage before long. The space where the competition was held looked rather empty by then. "Lift your ritual implements up and unleash their powers," the elder continued. Everyone did as they were told, unleashing the powers of their respective works. Devastating powers filled the air of the stage. There was no one left who were simply doing things for fun. The finished products of everyone who stayed behind all proved to be of top-class noble ranks. All of them were considered elite masters. What was most baffling, however, was that Luo Fan and Shui Yi were actually capable of crafting top-class noble ritual implements. While their end product was simply an irregularly shaped brick, the aura exuded from it said that it was still a top-class noble ritual implement nonetheless. "Seemed to me that those two actually worked their asses off to learn the art," Yi Futian commented with a smile. Those two seniors of his had always been cynical and buffoonish in their antics, but it was still undeniable that they truly dedicated themselves to learning the art. The very reason why they never learned how to shape their works was because they dedicated their efforts to learn the most important aspect of the art, the matrices. The elder deliberately spared a glance at both of them and said nothing. He went on to announce, "In the next round, we will be providing the materials and smelting furnaces. All furnaces are of the same make, and you are free to choose the attributes of the materials given to you. However, every single material provided, regardless of attribute, is of the same level, and you will be limited to picking only 3 materials at most. Under similar conditions, the 100 who are able to craft their pinnacle noble ritual implements will be listed in the top 100. One figure after another entered the arena as soon as the announcement was finished. All of them women, and all of them carried various kinds of crafting materials to be chosen by the participants. They were also people who set the smelting furnaces in their places, and every single one indeed looked identical. As such, no one was deemed to have any obvious edge against the other. With the elites selected from the first 2 rounds, the next round was all about standards of finished products crafted under the same conditions. It was the true test to pick the ones worthy of becoming the top 100. Those top 100 were free to join any forces in Alchemy City of their liking. All 300 participants spread out once again, each taking their spot in front of a smelting furnace and having their selected materials laid out. The air felt tense. Many looked on feeling serious. The next round of crafting would be the key, and the winners would then make it to the top 100. "Little brother, give it all you got in this one and don't mess anything up," Shui Yi said in a soft voice. They were the slowest among the 300 in the previous round. However, they needed to be fast in the next one, and as such, they were required to make the simplest ritual implement they were able to come up with. But then again, it was nonetheless a challenge to make a simple ritual implement with the power of a top-class noble ritual implement. "Since when did I mess anything up?" Luo Fan asked in a puzzled manner. "Begin," the elder announced the start of the next round of crafting. Everyone became busy in an instant. Luo Fan and Shui Yi were especially serious, sparing no time to talk and focusing only on what they should be doing in silence. Time passed and finally, there was someone who finished their piece. "It's done." That person was none other than Muo. He crafted a very simple dagger, but it was a dagger that shimmered throughout, exuding terrifying air of sharpness. Many nodded in silence. Muo was indeed very experienced at his art, and it was no surprise he turned out to be the fastest. Qi Lian was the second one who finished crafting. It was a sword. Lu Wei of the Lu clan in Alchemy City was the third person to finish crafting, followed by Zhou Sheng of Zhou clan. All of them were renowned figures in this event. More and more people finished crafting their ritual implements, and more became anxious. However, Gong Sun Yi, Yu Tu, and Yu Ming went crafting their works in a very focused and composed manner still. It was as if they were pursuing an artistic flair in the works instead of making things simply to win the competition. The standards of the participants became even more apparent when they were forced to craft high-level ritual implements using the same materials. Yu Tu crafted a pair of gloves, which were incredibly intricate. The gloves conjured terrifying shadow of a dragon and filled with an appalling sense of power as soon as he put them on his hands. An heir of the city lord indeed, some quipped with an impressed tone. Gong Sun Ye's work seemed not to be inferior as well. He went to craft a pair incredibly dazzling rock wings, which shimmered with golden light, emanating incredibly sharp aura when the wings were melded with one's body. It was an apparatus with both offensive and defensive properties, and it amplified the speed of the wearer as well. It was an astonishing feat for someone to be able to craft one such ritual implement in such a short time. "We're done." Elated voices were heard. Shui Yi and Luo Fan looked at each other and smiled. The end product was still a brick. Terrifying might emanated from it as Shui Yi held his hands on the brick. It pulsed with the frightening power of lightning and packed highly destructive powers. This. Everyone was rendered speechless. Their end product looked almost identical to what they had crafted so far. Were they simply trying to get more familiar with their processes in the last round? While there were no rules forbidding such an act, it was nonetheless deemed baffling and shameless for them to craft a similar piece in 2 consecutive rounds. Just how such losers managed to get so far in the alchemy conference. "This is an insult," Di Zhou said coldly. As Yi Futian did not play nice with him before, he had no intention of being polite to him. Slightly inferior standard at the art compensated with strategy. "Good move," Yi Futian praised them loudly. "You call that a strategy?" Many looked at Yi Futian, finding him to be just as shameless as his seniors. 100 mighty ones finished crafting pinnacle noble ritual implements soon and went on to unleash their powers as soon as they were done. The elder at the stairs, however, did not stop the competition. There was still a need to eliminate those who did not make the cut. As such, the competition at that round would have truly come to an end when 120 participants had finished crafting. Those who were not able to finish looked at Luo Fan and Shui Yi with disgusted eyes. They would have done the same if they knew that would have worked. One's face was cheap when they had the chance to be among the top 100. There was still the inspection of the ritual implements to be considered. The items crafted by the first 100 who finished did not seem to have any problems, and all of them were pinnacle noble ritual implements, including what Shui Yi and Luo Fan crafted. As such, they were able to make it to the top 100. Those who failed to make the cut left the arena one by one. All of them looked rather dissatisfied. Countless kept their eyes on the 100 at the front. They were the ones who were to compete in the final round. The elder at the stairs looked at the remaining 100 and said, "The next round will be the final round of the alchemy conference. There are no set limitations in this round. You will be crafting your best works using your own furnaces and materials. There will not be a time limit. Your time will be up when you have finished crafting your ritual implement. No recraft will be tolerated, and finally, your rank will be entirely dependent on the quality of the ritual implement crafted." The next round of crafting battle was no longer an elimination round. Unlike martial arts competitions, all participants were allowed to craft at the same time. The rank would depend on the quality of ritual implement crafted. "You all will have 1 hour to rest and prepare yourselves, as well as to think what you would be crafting next," the elder continued, and the air in the stage felt different once again. In the next hour, the ritual implements crafted by the participants would decide the highest standards of the future generation of the world of armorers in Barren State. Chapter 626. Everyone occupied a space of their own within the vast crafting area. Most were getting some shute, getting their mental state to peak performance in order to participate in the final round of ritual implement crafting. This round was incredibly important. Everyone occupied a space of their own within the vast crafting area. Most were getting some shute, getting their mental state to peak performance in order to participate in the final round of ritual implement crafting. This round was incredibly important. At the top of the stairs before the area, an elder walked towards Yu Qi and took a dazzling golden scroll from him. A flash of recognition shot through the eyes of many, and they stared at that golden scroll. "It's the alchemy rank," someone said. The people spectating from afar seemed to be agitated at the revealing of the golden scroll. Now that the alchemy rank had been taken out, these top 100 armorers had received the right to have their names written down in the rank. The following round would then decide their exact ranking within the alchemy rank in this year's competition. This ranking could potentially affect the future of the participants. Should they be able to rank high in the alchemy rank, their prospects would be greater. All the top powers in the barren state would support them with various training and ritual implement crafting resources. It would be an endless supply, and they wouldn't have to worry about finding their own resources. This was how valuable talents in ritual implement crafting were. Each influential organization had its own armorer, and they invested a lot of resources to have these armorers work for them. The many armorers present took a good look at the alchemy rank. However, Shui and Luo Fan did not seem to be the least bit bothered by the rank. They did not sit down to rest but were pacing in the side of the area. Many people were looking at the duo, wondering what they were up to. However, it was break time, after all. They were well within their rights to do whatever they wanted. Shui and Luo Fan walked over to the spectator stands, which was on the right, and came before Yi Futian. Fourth older brother, fifth older brother. Seeing the two men come over, Yi Futian smiled and greeted them. Yi Shaoshi greeted the two as well. Little brother, have you and Little Shi come over to Alchemy City for the trials as well? Shui asked. Yeah, I came here to have a look around, and I got myself some ritual implements to use too. Yi Futian nodded before asking, older brothers, what are you participating in the alchemy conference for? If you want ritual implements, we could get them from the alchemy casino. Those who heard Yi Futian's words from a distance away frowned in disapproval. What did this rascal take the alchemy casino for? For Yi Futian to speak of the alchemy casino like a place to simply get ritual implements, did he think the place belonged to him? We haven't seen each other for a few years, but little brother, how do you still not have any pursuits? Luo Fan replied, looking at Yi Futian. Yi Futian was taken aback. If you're not here for ritual implements, then are you really preparing to enter the City Lord office to learn ritual implement crafting? That seemed like a good idea to Yi Futian. If his older brothers were to learn ritual implement crafting from the City Lord office, then it would be way easier for him to obtain ritual implements in the future. No, Luo Fan shook his head lightly, we're aiming for first place. Yi Futian blinked and stared at Luo Fan wordlessly before turning to look at Shui. With their abilities, it was already beyond lucky that they could even be in the top 100. And now, they wanted to be first in the alchemy conference? Are these two idiots? Di Zhou cursed from afar. To him, something was definitely wrong with the heads of these two. Even you two from the City Lord office wouldn't dare claim that he would be able to get first place in the alchemy conference. In this alchemy conference, there were so many powerful people awaiting the results of the alchemy rank. Older brother, are you serious right now? Yi Futian asked, perspiring from embarrassment. Yeah. Shui nodded his head, the image of seriousness. We've got to be first place. I believe you, Yi Futian replied, somewhat lost for words. He said the word believe with special emphasis. Little brother, since when have I ever lied to you? Shui said, looking at Yi Futian, since I said I'm aiming for the top, of course, I am going to go all in. Yi Futian looked at Shui in confusion, wondering what the chances were that his older brother was really being serious about this. Yi Futian's eyes shifted about, and he looked at Shui somewhat warily before whispering, I heard that the one who wins first place at the alchemy conference will be able to marry the daughter of the City Lord office. Could it be that older brother has his eye on that family's daughter? Smart guy, you finally got it, Luo Fan praised. Little brother, if a man as talented as I were to be out and about, it's no wonder I'd attract the attention of a lady that's as equally amazing as I am. Shui sighed. Yi Futian was speechless for a while before he said, in some awe, older brother, you're amazing. Little brother, Little Shi, how has your training been at the palace? Shui asked. Seventh older brother and I are doing well. I'm a grade 4 noble now, and seventh older brother is a grade 3 noble, Yi Futian replied. That puts me at ease. Looks like you two aren't too far from becoming top-notch nobles. The Holy Ji Palace has many training resources, make good use of this opportunity to train well, Shui advised nicely. I understand, older brother. Yi Futian nodded. Work hard, little brother. You're a smart man, maybe we'll need your help in future when it comes to third older brother and older sister's affairs, Shui continued speaking. Right. Yi Futian began to feel a little strange at his older brother's words. He wondered what his older brother meant by telling him all that. Well then, I'll head over to prepare for the ritual implement crafting, Shui announced. Alright. Yi Futian nodded, and the two men left together to head back to their places in the area. An hour passed very quickly, and when the elder announced the start of the ritual implement crafting from the top of the staircase, the vast space instantly became deafeningly quiet, so much so that one could hear a pin drop. An endless crowd had gathered at the conference, but no one spoke. Even the important guests had stopped their discussions as well. Everyone was intently watching the 100 people craft ritual implements. No one made any noise to not disturb those at work. This was the respect people showed towards the alchemy conference. At this moment, U2 was bathed in frightening flames. The flames were golden and filled with an overpowering elegance. It took on the form of a dragon and became the divine fire of the 9 dragons, which rushed into the smelting furnace. It's the golden flames of the 9 dragons, the spectators thought to themselves. The flames that were passed down a branch of the Yu family had incredible might. U2's life spirit was even beaming with the flames. 9 golden fire dragons could be seen, bathed in the endless flames. It was an incredibly elegant sight. Furthermore, a pure gold material was sitting within U2's smelting furnace at this moment. It was a golden asteroid, an incredibly rare material to use in ritual implement crafting. It was especially tough, even top-notch nobles would not be able to smash this golden asteroid into pieces if they tried. This material was often used in crafting sage-level ritual implements. It could either create ritual implements with incredible attacking power or defensive ritual implements. U2 was offering up his ultimate skills in this round. Gongsun Yi was also putting up a spectacular display. A dazzling matrix appeared beneath his feet, and a scroll floated within his smelting furnace. A large amount of worldly spiritual chi flowed above the furnace, and many ritual implement crafting materials were melting on the scroll, dripping bit by bit into it. Afterward, 7 shadow figures appeared, in the likeness of Gongsun Yi. Standing on top of the scroll, they lifted brushes and began inscribing. That's Gongsun Ye's Dharma body, someone whispered. Everyone watched him work. While many people had given their all to enter the top 100 in the alchemy conference, to an armorer like Gongsun Yi, it was not necessary for him to go all out in order to reach this round. All he had to do was reveal just a part of his true abilities. But this round was where the real battle was, and he was going to craft a ritual implement that would trump all. Yu Ming was crafting a chess set, while Qi Lian was crafting a dueling sword. Mu O seemed to be crafting a magical orb, and everyone else was doing all they could to craft their respective ritual implements. Zhou Sheng and LV Wei both had equally incredible ritual implement crafting processes. Yi Futian's eyes swept across all the armorers present. Though he had little knowledge of ritual implement crafting, he could still feel the incredible skill present. The Alchemy Conference was the highest-level ritual implement crafting competition in the Barren State. Naturally, it was of a different caliber, with the Barren State's best armorers of the noble plane all present. His gaze then landed on his older brothers. The duo was uncharacteristically solemn. The ritual implement they were crafting seemed to be the same as what they had been doing, something that looked like a giant brick. Yi Futian wore a baffled expression at the sight. However, his 5th older brother Luo Fan seemed to be cutting the brick into smaller pieces. His knife skill was akin to that required in cutting vegetables. The small pieces were all neat. The seriousness of his 2 older brothers had Yi Futian very confused. He began to suspect that his older brothers were genuinely serious in their attempt. Could it be that one of his older brothers had really fallen for the daughter of Alchemy City's City Lord office? However, everyone else at the Alchemy Conference was obviously very skilled in ritual implement crafting. Even if his 2 older brothers joined forces, it was impossible that they would gain victory over the rest. The crackling of flames was practically the only sound that could be heard in the quiet space. Gradually, the sound of clanging metal could be heard as well. This round of ritual implement crafting was the slowest, with 4 hours gone already and still no one having completed their ritual implement yet. In this final round, everyone was making use of their best skills in hopes of crafting a top-notch ritual implement. Whether it was ingredients or difficulty in crafting, the competitors were bringing only the best to the table, which meant the process was time-consuming. However, the ritual implements they were working on were beginning to take on their initial form. After 2 more hours, a ritual implement was fully formed. It was a very thin sword, thin as gossamer and was dazzling silver. Like a silver thread, it flew about in the air, possessing a frightening penetrability while being almost as formless as the wind. A good ritual implement, many people praised. It was indeed rare to see such a delicate crafting technique. Afterward, more people began to complete their ritual implements. Each one was sublime in their craftsmanship. Frightening energy drew everyone's eyes in its direction. Over at Qi Lian's side, a giant dueling sword that was branded with magnificent streaks of gold along its body was slowly ascending into the sky. The sword gave one the impression that it was incredibly heavy, however, the tip of the sword seemed to be unimaginably sharp, and a scary glint gleamed from the ritual implement. Mu O's ritual implement is almost done as well, someone commented, and many people looked towards him. A single orb spun in the air, clear and dazzling yet still releasing frightening surges of energy. Such delicateness in weapon crafting could probably only be attributed to an armorer of Mu O's experience and skill. U2's smelting furnace rose into the sky, and a precious cauldron of the 9 dragons appeared, turning slowly in the sky. It was a magnificent sight to see. Gong Sun Yi had crafted a catalogue, within which the images of various people seemed to appear. Though it wasn't fully formed yet, it had already impressed many people. Seems like it's a given that Gong Sun Yi, U2, Qi Lian, and Mu O are going to be in the top 10, someone guessed. The ritual implements may not have been completed yet, but many people were already predicting the final rankings of the alchemy rank. The ritual implements that Gong Sun Yi and U2 had crafted also seemed to be at the level that deserved a ranking within the top 3. Right then, someone looked in Shui Yi and Luo Fan's direction. They were wondering how these 2 rascals, who had muddled their way into the top 100, would do this round. They probably were going to come in last this time. However, the brick they had created was already cut into small pieces and even melted into something that looked like paper for a scroll. A dull metallic shine could be seen still, and Shui Yi was continuously inscribing a matrix quietly. What's that thing? A book? Many people looked confused at the sight. They didn't quite get what the 2 were trying to do, but what they were crafting now at least seemed more legitimate than whatever they had created in the past rounds. Luo Fan, are you ready? Shui Yi whispered, his voice solemn. Older brother, should we just give up? We can always beg older sister. Maybe there'll be another way out. Luo Fan's voice was equally as low. I asked you if you were ready, Shui Yi hissed sternly. Luo Fan glanced over at him and replied, Shui Yi, you better think this through. Didn't I already clear things up with you before we came? I'm going to start, Shui Yi responded, and at his words, his life spirit flew out. An ancient book appeared and turned into an endless number of scrolls that danced in the sky. The pages from the ancient book shimmered and flew towards the small pieces of brick that lay on the smelting furnace. Let's do this, Shui Yi declared solemnly. Luo Fan was quivering slightly. While he had previously been relaxed and chatty, Luo Fan was now nervous beyond measure. He took in a deep breath and revealed an uncharacteristic seriousness. The flames suddenly turned incomparably violent and rushed towards the pages, melting them into the ritual implement. In an instant, the brick which had been cut into tiny pieces began to glow, emanating a dazzling golden glow. The matrix the 2 had inscribed previously began to glow intensely as well. The brick was no longer a brick, but a golden book. Rascal! Zhuge Mingyue suddenly stood up, her gaze steely. Staring at Shui Yi, she ordered, Shui Yi, stop right now. The influential characters around her were slightly taken aback as well. They knew what Shui Yi was about to do, he was going to insert his life spirit into the ritual implement as an offering. However, was this something Shui was capable of doing? Only top armorers of the Sage Plane would dare to do such a thing. Shui was obviously someone who had just picked up the art. He probably had only just read a few books on the subject. The consequences of pulling such a trick were dire. They included having one's powers destroyed, or even death. What is he doing? Wondered Chu Ji of the Goddess Pavilion. Was it necessary to put so much on the line just for the alchemy conference? Is he crazy? The large crowd now had their attention on Shui. They were no longer making fun of him. Now he was actually serious and not being his usual shameless, joking self. Shui was frightening. Fresh blood was trickling out the corners of Shui's mouth, and a desolate expression surfaced on his handsome face. Looking at Zhuge Mingyue's expression, he said, "Second older sister, you're so pretty, even when you're angry. No wonder third older brother is so smitten. But I've finally met someone he likes after training for so long. Of course, I have to let myself do something crazy just this once. Luo Fan, stop all this right now." Zhuge Mingyue then turned to Luo Fan, who was standing next to Shui. "Second older sister, I don't have any choice," Luo Fan replied haplessly. Zhuge Mingyue began to walk forward, but Yu Qi then spoke, "My niece, it is not permitted for anyone to interfere while the alchemy conference is ongoing." As he spoke, invisible energy surrounded Zhuge Mingyue. Yu Qi's gaze turned to Shui as well, a ripple of emotion appearing in his deep-set eyes. This rascal really is being audacious, he thought. "Second older sister, now that we've come to this point, you can't stop me anyway. If something really happens to me, tell third older brother that while he might have been very strict with me previously, I'll still be his younger brother in my next life," Shui whispered. "Of course, I won't forget about you, my pretty second older sister." Fourth older brother, Yi Futian murmured, finally understanding what was going on. He stood up and stared at Shui in disbelief that he had actually been serious about something that sounded like a joke. "Little brother, remember what I said to you just now. Remember to take care of things between second older sister and third older brother. You may have been the last to become a disciple, but everyone knows that you are the cottage's true hope for the future," Shui said, looking at Yi Futian. "Older brother, there are other ways out," Yi Futian replied seriously. Shui chuckled and turned away without saying anything further. Luo Fan then asked, "Do you have nothing to say to me?" "Get lost," Shui scolded him. "You better not let me meet you in the next life, you unlucky star. The next life's too far away. You better think this through. If you die, then someone else is going to take care of our sister-in-law, so you better not die." Luo Fan sighed leisurely. If Shui wasn't busy crafting the ritual implement, he would have killed Luo Fan with a slap. Chapter 627. In Alchemy City, a woman stood quietly at the top of an extremely tall ancient hall. She gazed into the distance, in the direction of the place where the alchemy conference was. When she saw Shui offer up his life spirit to the ritual implement, her body trembled, and a flash of emotion shot through her eyes. However, she composed herself again almost immediately. Afterward, she walked out and stepped through the air in the direction of the city lord office. In Alchemy City, a woman stood quietly at the top of an extremely tall ancient hall. She gazed into the distance, in the direction of the place where the alchemy conference was. When she saw Shui offer up his life spirit to the ritual implement, her body trembled, and a flash of emotion shot through her eyes. However, she composed herself again almost immediately. Afterward, she walked out and stepped through the air in the direction of the city lord office. Over at the alchemy conference, everyone was moved by Shui, and all eyes were on him, even more so than on people like Yu Tu and Gong Sunyi. Who was the woman who he had claimed to like? Who was the woman Luo Fan had called sister-in-law? Could it be that Shui had come here to craft ritual implements for the woman he loved? Shui and Luo Fan had said that they were aiming for first place in the alchemy conference. The winner would be able to marry the daughter of the city lord office, Yu Shi. Just as everyone was busy pondering this question, a pretty figure walked out from within the city lord office. Walking forward, she came to the top of the staircase, standing near City Lord Yu and the rest. When the woman appeared, countless gazes fell upon her. She was dressed in loose, long robes that hung off her body in a way that made it hard to see her figure, but one could tell that she was tall and slim. She had an air of elegance about her, and there was a cold aloofness to her beautiful features, creating a sense of distance between her and other people that they did not dare to cross. This was a lady whose looks were not inferior to those of Su Hongxiu, though she did not have the natural charisma that Su Hongxiu had, only pure beauty. This lady was Yu Shi, the daughter of the city lord office. Her gaze landed on Shui. Shui glanced up at her and chuckled. "You're here. Why are you doing this?" Yu Shi asked Shui. Her tone was cool, making it hard to guess what she was feeling. "Go back," Yu Qi ordered calmly, turning to his daughter. However, Yu Shi ignored his words as though she had not heard anything. This made many people speechless. Yu Shi was probably the only person in all of Alchemy City who would dare ignore the city lord Yu Qi in this way. No one else would have dared to do the same. "I'd like to give myself a shot at this." Shui grinned at Yu Shi. No wonder. The crowd thought to themselves, surprised at this new development. So, it turned out that Shui and Luo Fan had already known Yu Shi from before. Shui had come to participate in the alchemy conference despite not actually knowing how to craft ritual implements because he had fallen in love with Yu Shi, the daughter of the city lord office. That was the reason he had come here with the goal of winning first place, even at the expense of his own life. "I don't have any feelings for you, get out now," Yu Shi said coldly to Shui. "Oh," Shui smiled, "that's all right. It's enough for me that I like you. Besides, I'm not going to leave." As he spoke, his life spirit, the ancient book, continued flying rapidly into the ritual implement. The golden book ritual implement grew brighter still, and everyone else finally understood what he had been doing by crafting those ritual implements from the previous rounds. He had been preparing for this very moment. In this final round, he was turning that long brick into pages in order to make a book out of them. His life spirit carved matrices and integrated itself into the ritual implement, resonating with it before being crafted into one. It was the process of offering up one's life spirit to the ritual implement. Older brother. Yi Futian stood there, staring fixedly at the scene happening before him. His older brother used to be so irreverent, but now he was suddenly throwing even his life away in order to craft a ritual implement. This sudden change was too much for Yi Futian. Was this all just to marry Yu Shi? Yi Futian wondered what his older brother had been through these few years, and what exactly he had gone through with Yu Shi. Hua Jieyu stood up as well and held Yi Futian's hand tightly. She was equally shaken by the sudden shocking change in Shui. The scene happening before Hua Jieyu's eyes made her think about her own past with Yi Futian. She also likes older brother Shui. Hua Jieyu glanced over at Yu Shi. Yu Shi seemed aloof and emotionless, but Hua Jieyu could instinctively sense that Yu Shi was struggling internally, suppressing her own emotional turmoil in order to remain calm. Bright red blood trickled out continuously, staining Shuiye's top red. It was shocking to see. Shuiye's breathing grew increasingly weak, as if he were a lamp about to go out. His life spirit was being refined, his very soul being integrated into the ritual implement. However, Shui continued, urging his spiritual energy on. He was intent on completing the ritual implement. Since he had already come so far, he was going to finish the task no matter what. He was prepared to pay any price for it. Frightening energy was burning, and everyone felt the energy around Shui suddenly increase wildly. Despite the state he was in, the amount of energy around him was only increasing, and getting stronger as well. He's burning his own spiritual energy and releasing it at full capacity. What a crazy fellow, Yan Jun commented, looking at Shui. It did take courage to go this far with one's spiritual energy. However, he was doing it all just for a woman. Even if that woman was outstanding, with beauty that was absolutely stunning, was it really worth going this far? Yushi's slim fingers quivered slightly, and it seemed like her cold gaze was on the verge of melting as well. A hint of redness appeared in her eyes. That's enough, Yushi ordered, her fists clenched. You still care? Shui smiled, looking at her. You idiot, Yushi spat coldly. You liar. Shui was still smiling. At that, tears finally fell from Yushi's eyes. Gleaming tears rolled down her cheeks smoothly, leaving tear after tear on her beautiful face. The sight of Yushi's tears moved everyone. So, there actually had been something going on between these two. There was no way Yushi would shed tears for some random person. It was evident that the two had known each other from way back. Words like idiot and liar made it seem as though they were scolding each other, but it also felt like a sort of affection. The winner of the alchemy conference would receive the right to marry Yushi, but it seemed like Yushi had already been in a relationship with someone else before the conference. If the person who won first place wasn't Shui, then what was the winner supposed to do? It was for that reason that Gong Sun Yi, Qi Lian, and the rest who had not completed their ritual implement yet, were wearing such ugly expressions. They were not the only ones. Even Yu Qi, the city lord, was frowning as well. This sort of affair was sure to put the city lord office in a difficult position and damage its reputation. However, the alchemy conference, which was held once every decade, was a tradition upheld by the Yu family for generations. If they were to host the alchemy conference, they would make sure that it was the talk of the entire barren state. As such, Yu Qi would have to pick the best woman for the competition. It didn't matter whether or not he could bear to offer up his own daughter. In any case, this also concerned the future of the city lord office. The winner of the alchemy conference would always be a person with exceeding talent in crafting ritual implements. They would make the best husband for a woman from the city lord office. However, his daughter Yushi had an especially fiery temperament. She had gone all out to resist this arranged marriage and created this huge mess today. Just then, a surge of incredibly savage energy was released. Over at Gong Sun Ye's side, his Dharma body was rapidly inscribing matrices that were even more powerful onto the scroll. It didn't matter to him whether Shui Yi was offering up his life spirit to the ritual implement. For a beginner in the art of crafting ritual implements to go all out and win first place in the alchemy conference was madness. Even if Shui Yi paid with his life, it would be all in vain. Gong Sun Yi was infuriated this very moment. He had believed firmly that he would be the winner of the alchemy conference without any hiccup occurring in his plans. He was going to enter the city lord office, marry the city lord's daughter Yushi, and inherit the city lord office and everything it owned in future. Everything that had happened thus far made him feel extremely humiliated. Is he recrafting his ritual implement? Everyone wondered, their eyes flashing at the sight of Gong Sun Ye's actions. Gong Sun Yi had yet to complete his ritual implement yet despite being close to it, which was why he could afford to recraft it. Now, it seemed like Gong Sun Yi had been spurred to create an even more powerful ritual implement. Many people could secretly relate to how Gong Sun Yi felt. Gong Sun Yi was an immensely talented armorer from a great family of armorers. He was well known in the world of armorers. He was comparable to Di Gang in terms of how much sway his voice held, and if he were to be ranked first in the alchemy rank, then he would be Yushi's future husband as well. Now that there were hints of him potentially becoming a cuckold, he naturally could not stand it. Yu Tu glanced over at Gong Sun Yi, wondering if it was possible for the ritual implement he was crafting to be any stronger still. If that was so, then there wasn't much hope left for Yu Tu anymore. Yu Qi was hoping that Yu Tu would win first place, so that the winner of the alchemy conference wouldn't have to marry Yushi. If that was the case, then it would be easier for Yu Qi to take control of the situation. However, it didn't seem like there was much hope left for Yu Tu to win. With a grunt, Yu Tu completed his ritual implement. It was a cauldron lifted up by 9 dragons, which glinted with a frightening glow. Powerful energy wafted from within the cauldron before the 9-dragon cauldron sank towards the ground and landed before him. Qi Lian had also completed his dueling sword, along with a growing number of people who were also wrapping up their work. However, Shui Yi and Gong Sun Yi were still continuing, until they were the last 2 people left still working on their ritual implements. Shui Yi's breathing was growing weaker still, and his spiritual energy seemed to have run out as well. The ritual implement floated before him, the golden pages shining with a brilliant dazzle. However, Shui's face was deathly pale, barely a hint of blood in his cheeks. His life spirit had been completely integrated into the ritual implement. Finally, he spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body fell backward as he became unable to support himself. As he fell, he managed to say, "I'm counting on you now." After speaking, Shui lost consciousness. Zhuge Mingyue stared unflinchingly in his direction, while Yi Futian and Hua Jieyu held each other's hand tightly until sweat formed in between their palms. Yuxi's face was filled with tears, and she shivered slightly. "You are the real unlucky star here. It's my misfortune to have an older brother like you," Luo Fan murmured. Afterward, his spiritual energy seemed to burn as well, urging the flames to burn at their strongest in order to complete the task Shui had not managed to finish. He was going to complete the ritual implement. The golden pages danced in the air, with each page carrying the heart and soul of the two people. Finally, the pages joined together to form the book from beginning to end, and streaks of light that were even more dazzling were released from the completion of the book. Luo Fan smiled, before plopping down onto the floor and looking at Shui. "Older brother," Luo Fan said to Shui, "you could say I've put my life on the line for you. When you get married, remember to help introduce to me a woman that's as good-looking as my sister-in-law, alright?" Many people were speechless at Luo Fan's words. These irreverent people really were optimistic about everything. Right then, an even stronger flash of light was released. In front of them, Gong Sun Yi had also finished crafting his ritual implement. Within the alchemy pillars, 100 armorers had all finished crafting their ritual implements. Now, 100 ritual implements had appeared within the area, each ritual implement being a noble-level ritual implement of the highest quality. Whatever happened next would determine their rankings in the alchemy rank. However, the only question on everyone's mind was, who would be the winner of the alchemy conference? Chapter 628, Yuqi looked towards the crafting area, and announced, "Time's up. Next, we'll be determining the order of the ranking." Yuqi looked towards the crafting area, and announced, "Time's up. Next, we'll be determining the order of the ranking." "Understood," the elders standing on top of the staircase replied. He looked towards the crowd below, announcing, "We will check each ritual implement to test its strength, and display it before everyone. Then we'll determine the ranking to be entered into the alchemy rank. Finally, the ranking will be judged by the city lord and the heads of the various clans in Alchemy City. Only when there is no more dispute over the rankings will the alchemy rank be announced publicly." After he spoke, 3 elders walked into the crafting area. They started with the competitors at the back of the area. The elders walked up to the first competitor to be tested, asked his name, and then took the ritual implement. Spiritual energy and spiritual chi flowed into the ritual implement. It was a ruler, colored a bloody red as if stained by fresh blood. When spiritual chi flowed into it, the ruler let out a frightening blood-red glow. It possessed immense flaming energy, and the temperature of the surroundings instantly became unimaginably hot. It's a ritual implement with top-quality offensive power. It may have strong offensive capabilities, but only a single type of attack can be used. It has mid-level offensive martial arts capabilities, and it neither has any defensive power nor offensive spiritual energy capabilities, the elder commented. The other 2 elders checked the ritual implement too, and they did not dispute his judgment. Afterward, they began to test the second ritual implement. It was a clock with mid-level offensive martial arts capabilities, defensive capabilities, and offensive spiritual energy capabilities. It was evidently a very well-crafted ritual implement. Impressive, many people praised. It was impressive that a ritual implement could be so well-balanced in its capabilities. Even though the ritual implement was judged as being only of a medium level, it was still a very well-crafted item nonetheless. The city lord office was very strict when it came to the judging of ritual implements. While these ritual implements were all noble-level items of the highest quality, they would still be separated into the following 4 grades: lower level, mid-level, upper level, and superior level. If not, it would be very difficult to judge the differences between all the ritual implements crafted here. After all, The 100 people here had all created top-quality noble-level ritual implements. The ritual implements went through the elders' tests one by one, and countless gazes were fixed upon them. As the elders checked the power of each ritual implement, eventually an upper-level ritual implement emerged. LV Wei presented a ritual implement that had upper-level offensive martial arts capabilities, upper-level offensive sorcery capabilities, and mid-level defensive capabilities. It was a very well-rounded ritual implement. Then, the elders came before Luo Fan and Shui. Luo Fan was still sitting on the ground while Shui had lost consciousness. Since his life was not in any danger, he was left in the crafting area to await the final results. This ritual implement has a life spirit integrated into it. It's a treasure book that contains many techniques. Please have a look at it, Luo Fan reminded them gently. The elders nodded. Taking the ritual implement, they injected their spiritual energy and spiritual chi into it. Immediately, the pages of the treasure book released a dazzling glow. Immense power flowed from each page in the book. In no time, the elders announced the results of their judging. This ritual implement possesses a multitude of offensive techniques. It has upper-level offensive martial arts capabilities, upper-level offensive sorcery capabilities, upper-level defensive capabilities, and upper-level offensive spiritual energy capabilities, the elder announced. At the elder's words, there was a flurry of discussion. This ritual implement had upper-level capabilities in all aspects. These two were just beginners in the art of crafting ritual implements, yet they had crafted a powerful ritual implement that was balanced in all aspects. If they were to train for a few years, they could potentially become highly skilled. Yi Futian clenched his fist lightly. His older brother's ritual implement had achieved an upper-level grade in all aspects. Hopefully, that would be enough to help him win first in this alchemy conference. He wouldn't have risked his life for nothing. Throughout the whole process, Yushi stared at Shui. Tears remained in the corners of her eyes, but her expression and gaze became aloof and determined again. One would not be able to tell what she was feeling if not for the tears on her face. After Shui and Luo Fan, there were many geniuses from Alchemy City who had managed to craft upper-level ritual implements as well. However, none of those could beat the ritual implement that the two had crafted. Everyone waited with bated breath. Even Yi Futian was getting nervous as he waited for a miracle to happen. It's Qi Lian's turn now, someone said. Everyone stared at the three elders, who walked before Qi Lian to test the dueling sword before announcing the results: superior-level offensive martial arts capabilities and upper-level defensive capabilities. A strong competitor, many people thought approvingly. A dueling sword with superior-level offensive capabilities was no doubt a work of Qi Lian's. However, it was still unknown if Qi Lian's ritual implement would beat Shui's. It's Yu Wei's turn. Everyone held their breath. His ritual implement was a chess set, and the results were upper-level offensive martial arts capabilities, upper-level offensive sorcery capabilities, upper-level defensive capabilities, and with the hidden potential for controlled attacks. Afterward, the elders walked towards Mu-O and tested the magical orb he had created. The final results were upper-level offensive sorcery capabilities, upper-level offensive spiritual energy capabilities, with the hidden potential of defensive spiritual energy capabilities. As expected, things turned out the way many people had thought. While Mu-O was skilled, he was restricted by the limits to his abilities in cultivation. He was not as strong as those top-notch talents, which restricted the quality of the ritual implement he crafted. Next up was U2's 9-Dragon Cauldron. In the end, it was judged to possess superior-level offensive martial arts capabilities, upper-level defensive capabilities, and upper-level offensive spiritual energy capabilities. It was even stronger than Qi Lian's dueling sword and had the hidden potential to carry out spiritual energy attacks. The treasure book that Shui and Luo Fan had created was indeed magnificent. It did not pale in comparison to the ritual implement you two had crafted. The last person to be judged was Gong Sun Yi. Yi Futian was especially nervous at this very moment. While the ritual implement you two crafted had been outstanding, his older brother's creation had been no less impressive. Furthermore, it didn't matter if you two came in first anyway. It all depended on that one last person. Gong Sun Yi stood, waiting quietly for the elders to come to him. There was no hint of emotion in his expression. The elders took the scroll he had crafted before injecting spiritual energy and spiritual qi into it. Instantly, the scroll expanded such that it seemed to cover the sky itself. On the scroll, pictures seemed to come alive, and it seemed like there were matrices within the scroll as well. The matrices swallowed up the worldly spiritual qi in the surroundings, and spiritual qi from the 7 elements surged into it as well. The 3 elders lifted their heads to look around at the surroundings, their hearts shaken by the sight. This catalog has the power of many matrices that you can combine at will. It swallows up worldly spiritual qi in order to create frightening offensive spells. It even has the hidden potential of a sage's might within. This is a ritual implement with superior level offensive sorcery capabilities, superior level offensive spiritual energy capabilities, and upper level defensive capabilities, the elder declared. Everyone's gaze froze upon Gong Sun Yi upon the elder's judgment. This judgment seemed to have predetermined the outcomes of this competition. It seemed like Gong Sun Yi's ritual implement would undeniably make him the winner of the alchemy conference. He would rank first in the alchemy rank. Gong Sun Yi's remained unaffected. He didn't feel happy at all, only rage at how Shui and Luo Fan thought they would be able to surpass him just by offering up a life spirit to the ritual implement. They were fools on a wild goose chase for success. Gong Sun Yi thought that they should have given up by now. Yet he still couldn't find it in him to be happy. Luo Fan, who was sitting on the ground, smiled. But his smile was somewhat depressed. Looking at Shui, who was next to him, he said, "Older brother, you put your life on the line in this gamble, but we've still lost." After all, they were only beginners in the craft. Having only started recently, they weren't at all familiar with the ways of crafting a ritual implement. If it wasn't for Shui offering up his life spirit to the ritual implement, there was no way they would have come this far. Even then, they still weren't good enough to triumph over that monstrously talented armorer. So, they've lost. Yi Futian was shaken. His older brother had gone to such lengths, but still, he had lost. Since his older brother was in love with Yushi, it was a loss as long as he had not won first place. Zhuge Mingyue was somewhat upset as well. When she had first found out about the incident, she had been especially furious. She had never been so furious before. This was because Shui's actions were akin to looking for death. Even her father, who was the head of the Zhuge family, would not be able to help Shui, much less her. He would not help him either, because with the huge mistake he had made, there was no way the city lord of the alchemy city was going to let him off. And now, since Shui had gone so far with this competition, there was nothing else she could say. In the end, he still had not managed to create a miracle and rewrite fate against all odds. Yushi's expression was calm as ever. She just stood there quietly. The 3 elders were already in the process of creating the first draft of the rankings. They then submitted the draft to Yu Qi and the heads of the various clans in Alchemy City. After making a few small adjustments, Yu Qi inscribed the names into the alchemy rank personally. When Yu Qi stood up to announce the rankings in the quiet space, everyone perked up and listened intently. Every name on the alchemy rank could be a future legend in the world of armorers. Yi Futian didn't bother listening, he was not in the mood. Names were announced one by one, and Yi Futian only began to listen half-heartedly when Yu Qi was at the last few names. Mu O was 6th, Yu Ming was 5th, and Qi Lian was 4th. Finally, it was time to announce the top 3. Yu Qi looked at the crowd, before announcing, 3rd in the alchemy rank, Yu Tuesday. Everyone was taken aback. Yu Tu, who was from the city lord, was only 3rd in the alchemy rank. 2nd in the alchemy rank, Shui and Luo Fan, Yu Qi continued. Countless people looked towards the 2. Shui and Luo Fan, who were lying and sitting on the ground, respectively, were 2 bleak figures. Though they had won 2nd place in the alchemy conference, everyone only felt an atmosphere of despair about them. 1st in the alchemy rank, Gong Sun Yi, Yu Qi continued announcing. Being 1st in the alchemy rank was an immense glory. One was a shining star in the eyes of others, the next legend of the armorer world. But when people looked towards Gong Sun Yi, they could not feel his excitement. Everyone knew that the reason for this was Shui Ye's relationship with Yu Shi. It would have been better if he had not gotten first place. Today's events had proven that Gong Sun Yi had the abilities to be first in the alchemy rank, and he had attained first place, but now that he was first, the woman he was supposed to marry had now publicly revealed that she was in a relationship with another man. How was he supposed to save face now? Marrying Yu Shi, the daughter of the city lord office, Yu Qi's daughter, and a talent in her own right, was supposed to be a good thing desired and envied by many. But now, it didn't really amount to much at all. As a result, this edition of the Alchemy Conference ended on a rather strange note. None of the people in the top 3 were actually satisfied with their placement. Yu too was probably very disappointed with his own ranking. We've now come to the end of the Alchemy Conference. The City Lord Office will be hosting a banquet to welcome our guests from all over the Barren State and the top 100 armorers, Yu Qi declared. Everyone understood that only top-notch individuals from all over the Barren State would deserve to be invited to the banquet. There was no place for commoners there. During the banquet, the top 100 armorers shall receive their just rewards as well. Please follow me into the City Lord Office, Yu Qi spoke again before he turned to leave in the direction of the office. The influential characters around him followed after him into the building. Yi Futian and Zhuge Mingyue moved towards where Shui Yi and Luo Fan were in a flash. Yu Shi went to go there as well, but she was blocked from doing so by 2 elders. In the end, she could only turn and go into the City Lord office. Upon seeing this, Gong Sun Ye's expression turned darker. The two had been in a relationship, and Luo Fan even called Yu Shi his sister-in-law. Could anything have already happened between Shui Yi and Yu Shi? He was going to see how Yu Qi, a representative figure of the Barren State's world of armorers, was going to account for this incident. Chapter 629. In Alchemy City, Yi Futian and the others gathered around Shui Yi and Luo Fan. Zhuge Mingyue checked Shui Ye's injuries. In Alchemy City, Yi Futian and the others gathered around Shui Yi and Luo Fan. Zhuge Mingyue checked Shui Ye's injuries. Senior sister, how is he? Yi Futian asked. Very weak, Zhuge Mingyue said. He's used up all his spiritual energy and used his life spirit. He must have damaged his vitality. We won't know the result until he wakes up. This idiot. He's indeed an idiot, Luo Fan also said. I'll take care of you later. Zhuge Mingyue glanced at Luo Fan, making him smile wryly. Let me see, a gentle voice said right then. Yi Futian looked over at Phoenix and said, Phoenix is the disciple of the undying old man. Senior sister, let her look. Okay. Zhuge Mingyue made room for her. Phoenix walked to Shui Ye's side and released her spiritual energy. Green light flashed instantly, enveloping Shui Ye's body. The thick aura of vitality oozed out. Green light seeped into Shui Yi bit by bit. His vitality is greatly damaged and he's hurt his core. He'll be disabled by the time he wakes up, Phoenix murmured. Yi Futian paled instantly. Is there any way to save him? Yes. Phoenix nodded. She reached out and took a pill from her storage ring. This is the pill my teacher gave me, she said. The Phoenix pill. The Phoenix pill that is said to bring people back from the dead? Zhuge Kanyang's eyes flashed. This medicine was extremely valuable. It could be traded for a sage ritual implement. Even sages dreamed about having that pill. Having it could save their lives. Was this woman going to give it to Shui Yi now? Yi Futian obviously knew how valuable the Phoenix pill was. Earlier, Phoenix had used it as her wager at the casino alchemy and the others were all shocked. Yes, but it's not that miraculous. If someone is truly dead, he can't be brought back. However, he's only a noble. This pill is able to replenish what he used up today, Phoenix said. Then she put the Phoenix pill in Shui Ye's mouth. The pill melted immediately and Shui Yi glowed brilliantly. He seemed to be blanketed in some miraculous power. The phoenix pill's powerful medicinal effect was mending his body. Gradually, Shui was covered in light. Luo Fan blinked. "Girl, do you have more? I'm hurt badly too." "Shut up." Zhuge Mingyue glanced at Luo Fan. "Senior sister, I was just joking," Luo Fan said with a trembling smile. "Your injuries don't need the phoenix pill. You just used up all your spiritual energy and didn't hurt your core like him. This pill will be enough." Phoenix took out another pill for Luo Fan, who accepted it with a smile. "Thank you. If you need anything in the future, just ask my junior." Yi Futian stared at this guy, speechless. However, he still had to thank Phoenix. Looking over, he said, "Thank you. Didn't we receive many ritual implements earlier? It's not a loss for me." Phoenix smiled. Yi Futian made note of her help. In reality, they weren't very close. Phoenix cultivated in the Daozang Pavilion with Jieyu. She'd only asked him some questions about cultivation before and hadn't really interacted until this trip to Alchemy City. A while later, Shui opened his eyes. Various faces appeared in his vision. "Result?" he asked as soon as he woke up. Clearly, he was still worried about the ranking of the alchemy conference. Zhuge Mingyue glared at him. This guy cared about the ranking instead of his own life. "Second," Luo Fan said. "Who's first?" Shui asked. "He hoped it was you Tuesday, Gong Sunyi." "So we still lost?" Shui's eyes darkened immediately. "Fourth senior brother, perhaps Gong Sunyi will give up because of your relationship with her," Yi Futian comforted. Shui sat up and noticed the strangeness of his body. "Why am I okay?" he asked. "You really think that you can marry Yushi if you disable yourself and win first place?" "Idiot," Zhuge Mingyue scolded. "If Junior's fellow disciple hadn't given you a pill, you'd be disabled right now." "Thank you." Seeing that Zhuge Mingyue was looking at Phoenix, Shui realized who'd saved him. He thanked her softly, thinking that his junior was very powerful. He always had beauties around him while Shui couldn't even catch one. "Since you're alive, let's go to the banquet in the City Lord's office. With your performance today, City Lord Yu won't kill you." Zhuge Mingyue's expression was still cold. Then she started walking towards the City Lord's office. The others all followed her. "Second senior sister, senior brother is pretty miserable. Don't yell at him," Yi Futian whispered. "Yell? He'd gotten his life saved. Ask your asshole senior brother what he'd done." Zhuge Mingyue's anger hadn't subsided at all. Yi Futian found this strange. He'd seen Shui and Yushi's relationship. Why was Zhuge Mingyue saying this? Right then, Luo Fan patted Yi Futian's shoulder and said telepathically, "Junior, don't tell anyone, but fourth senior brother has already had sex with her." Yi Futian felt awkward. "This. And she has it already," Luo Fan added. Yi Futian tripped and stumbled forward. He almost fell. Luo Fan grabbed his shoulder to steady him, but Yi Futian's brain had almost stopped working. This guy. Yi Futian finally understood why second senior sister was so angry. Even he wanted to kill his senior brother. Wasn't this suicide? Who was Yushi? She was the daughter of Yuchi, the top armorer of the Baron State and 8th on the Baron Sky ranking. He'd already proposed to marry Yushi to the first place of the alchemy conference. Even so, Shui had had sex with Yushi and even got her pregnant. This was no different from suicide. Yi Futian finally understood second senior sister's reaction in the Holy Ji Palace. Indeed, she couldn't save Shui. Even the Zhuge family's patriarch couldn't help. Shui was looking for death. Yi Futian felt that it was a miracle for him to live until now. "What's wrong?" Hua Jieyu asked. She found Yi Futian's reaction strange. "Nothing." Yi Futian composed himself and stopped talking for now. He couldn't spread this news. Otherwise, Yuchi might actually kill Shui. Thankfully, Yushi's stomach was still small and no one could tell. Otherwise, no one could save Shui. Now, they had to see if there was still a chance. Yuchi had seen Shui win second place in the alchemy conference. He'd probably consider forgiveness too. After all, this was a scandal and he wouldn't want it to spread. If Shui could marry Yushi, this scandal would be covered instead of exposed. The city lord's office had already prepared a grand banquet. After Yi Futian's group arrived, the banquet began. They quickly found their seats and sat down. Many people looked towards them and especially at Shui. Had he really woken up so quickly? Yuchi also glanced at Shui, but no one could tell what he was thinking from his calm expression. While making armory earlier, he'd acted as if he didn't even see Shui. His endurance was terrifying. This year's alchemy conference is over, Yuchi said to everyone. Since we are all here, the promise from before is still effective. All the lords of the major families of Alchemy City are here personally. The 100 of the alchemy rank can choose whichever family they'd like to cultivate in. Of course, you can also join the city lord's office. Today's final battle was incredible, the family lord of the Zhou family said, smiling. It's even more impressive than the last one 10 years ago. If anyone is willing to join the Zhou family, we will definitely treat you well. We will provide the best cultivation and armory conditions. The same for the Lu family, the respective family lord said. After that, the other families all spoke out, but they didn't say anything specific. Evidently, they couldn't compete so directly. However, this kind of invitation was tradition. The people could choose for themselves. After all, they should know that the top 100 were still weaker than the top 10. If they entered the city lord's office, City Lord Yuchi still wouldn't have time to teach them, and they'd have fewer opportunities. There were many talents in the city lord's office. The top talents of every decade joined it. If they joined the city lord's office, they would be able to receive tips from the seniors there and have a good atmosphere. However, they wouldn't stand out and receive special training. Thus, not everyone would choose the city lord's office. Of course, you don't need to rush. If the top 10 chooses the city lord's office, they can practice armory with me. For the top 3, I will personally teach you my techniques, Yuchi continued. This was what he'd promised before. Of course, if you have other choices, I won't blame you. This is your choice. I'm willing to cultivate in the city lord's office, Shui said first. Many people looked at him. This guy had an ambiguous relationship with Yushi. He obviously wanted to cultivate in the city lord's office. Yuchi scanned him indifferently but still nodded. All right. Gong Sun Ye's expression was extremely ugly. He stared coldly at Shui. Coincidentally, Shui looked up at him and said, Gong Sun Yi, I already knew Yushi beforehand. You won first place in the alchemy conference, but if you can give it up, I would be grateful from the bottom of my heart. If you need anything in the future, I will help you. This guy. Many people looked at Shui, intrigued. Was he publicly begging Gong Sun Yi? Everyone understood what he wanted Gong Sun Yi to give up, of course. Evidently, Shui had only won second place, but he still hadn't given up. He wanted to fight for it through Gong Sun Yi. Gong Sun Yi stared coldly at him. He felt insulted. You've already seen what's between my senior brother and Yushi, Yi Futian said. It isn't fair to you, and it's my senior brother's fault. But things are already as they are, so why don't you just give them your blessing? If you have any requests, I will try my best. We will owe you in the future. Since Shui and Yushi already had a child, he had to help fight for Shui. And there were only two options, Gong Sun Yi and Yuchi. In reality, Gong Sun Yi was the only option. After all, if Gong Sun Yi insisted, Yuchi couldn't take back his words. Gong Sun Yi raised his head and sent a mocking glare at Yi Futian. Scram! Chapter 630, Gong Sun Yi was totally pissed off. Yushi's date with Shui was a shame to him. At this moment, how could Shui and Yi Futian dare to make this known to all and ask him to make a concession? Were they mad? He was first place in this alchemy conference. How could they treat him like this? He made great achievements both in martial arts and alchemy. People regarded him and Di Gang as the two top talents of Alchemy City. Gong Sun Yi was totally pissed off. Yu Shi's date with Shui Yi was a shame to him. At this moment, how could Shui Yi and Yi Futian dare to make this known to all and ask him to make a concession? Were they mad? He was first place in this alchemy conference. How could they treat him like this? He made great achievements both in martial arts and alchemy. People regarded him and Di Gang as the two top talents of Alchemy City. Gong Sun Yi had planned this for a long time before the conference. He was going to be the winner. Then Yu Qi would enroll him as his first disciple. He was also going to marry Yu Shi, the famous beauty of Alchemy City. He was going to be the next legend. He had waited too long for this day to come. But what happened on the alchemy conference had destroyed his fantasies. Everything he'd wanted had been tainted. Shui Yi took his woman away. Yi Futian was the winner of the pavilion battle 3 years ago. Who did he think he was to interfere with Gong Sun Ye's matters and make him stop? Oh, him. He was the first of the alchemy rank. He didn't need Yi Futian to owe him. Yi Futian was only the winner of a battle that was held every 3 years, but Gong Sun Yi was the winner of the alchemy conference that was held every 10 years. He would definitely become a legend in the world of alchemy. Those top talents of the Baron State would respect him too. In the future, he wouldn't even need to care about the Holy Ji Palace. Yu Qi, the Lord of Alchemy City, had never bothered to attend the battle held by the Holy Ji Palace. The word "scram" silenced everyone. Eyes all fell on Yi Futian. The big figures also became interested in this show held by the winner of the alchemy conference and the winner of the pavilion battle. Looking over and seeing Gong Sun Ye's eyes, Yi Futian knew it was impossible for Gong Sun Yi to concede now. From Gong Sun Ye's eyes, Yi Futian saw anger, coldness as well as pride. Obviously, Gong Sun Yi didn't think much about his status as a disciple of the Holy Ji Palace. Gong Sun Yi turned slowly to Yu Qi and asked, "Sir, my engagement with Yu Shi won't be changed, right?" Gong Sun Yi. At this time, Di Kai looked at Gong Sun Yi and exclaimed, "It is a tradition that the winner of the alchemy conference will marry the city lord's daughter. This is one of the greatest events in Alchemy City. Since Mr. Yu has promised, no one can change it. Please don't mind what just happened. The engagement won't be influenced." Gong Sun Yi, mind your mouth, one of his seniors warned. Gong Sun Yi was from the Gong Sun family, which was old and well known for alchemy. "I apologize for being rude." Gong Sun Yi took a bow and raised a glass. "I'll take 3 as punishment." Then he drank 3 glasses of wine. Shui Yi and Yi Futian didn't look well because they knew that Gong Sun Yi was going to marry Yu Shi no matter what. Gong Sun Yi. Yu Qi also turned to Gong Sun Yi. He stood up and said, "I'm sorry about what happened before. It's my fault. As the host of this conference, I should be responsible for this too. Now, I would like to tell you something. You are still the one to decide. Please follow me." Then Yu Qi stood up and walked away. Gong Sun Ye's eyes flashed. Was Yu Qi going to give him an explanation? He stood up too and followed Yu Qi to the distance. Many people looked in their direction curiously. Yu Shi's appearance probably embarrassed Yu Qi. He had to arrange this well. People were curious about what Yu Qi would say to Gong Sun Yi. Shui Ye's group was also looking at the same direction, but Yu Qi had separated the rest of them. Then he said to Gong Sun Yi, "Gong Sun Yi, since you are the ultimate winner of this conference, you can be my disciple if you'd like. I will teach you everything I know about alchemy. As for Yu Shi, I didn't teach her well. It's my fault. But before you make the decision, I have to make something clear in case you regret your decision." "Sir, what's it?" Gong Sun Yi felt there was something strange. Yu Qi had called him here for a personal conversation with him. Was there something wrong? Yu Shi is a rebellious girl. She isn't actually willing to marry somebody she doesn't know. That's why she once left home for a while. It was at that time she met Shui. And they did something improper. Yuqi didn't reveal too many details. He knew that his daughter, by doing this, was protesting his decision. Hearing Yuqi's words, Gong Sunyi turned pale. Something improper? He knew what it meant. If he married Yuqi, it would mean that she'd already had another man before marriage. He clenched his fists tightly. His nails dug into his palms. Gong Sunyi took a deep breath, trying to calm down. I am responsible for this, but it has already happened, Yuqi said. If you decide not to marry her, I will make it up to you in other ways. After entering the city lord's office, you will get to know many other beauties of my family. Once you meet someone you love, I will let her marry you. What do you think? He didn't actually have to make such a promise. It wasn't a big deal even if Gong Sunyi knew the fact after their marriage. Yuqi was only concerned that Gong Sunyi, the winner of the alchemy conference, might hate him and Yuqi. That wouldn't be a good thing for the family. That was why he chose to tell Gong Sunyi the truth and promised that he would make it up to him. If I concede like this, I will never be able to move past this mark on my reputation. I will become the subject of gossip. Gong Sunyi was torn. He lowered his head and coldness flashed in his eyes. Yuqi, you'll regret it. Gong Sunye's heart was cold. He laughed and looked at Chiyu. Sir, it's a little shameful, but Yuqi is such a wonderful girl. I still want to marry her. Yuqi looked at Gong Sunyi meaningfully, as if he knew what Gong Sunyi was thinking. What if Yuqi is pregnant? Yuqi continued. He didn't want to reveal this, but seeing that Gong Sunyi still wouldn't give up, he had to tell the truth. Gong Sunyi stepped back and trembled. His face turned paler. If Yuqi wasn't here, Gong Sunyi would have exploded. His fiancée was pregnant with another man's child. Bitch! Gong Sunyi was furious and needed to vent his anger. I won't change my mind, Gong Sunyi said determinedly, looking at Yuqi. Fine, as long as you don't mind. However, I want you to keep this secret. I don't want anyone else to know. You understand? Yuqi said slowly. Gong Sunyi felt invisible pressure. He knew the consequence if he dared to tell others, even if he won first place. I understand, Gong Sunyi replied. Okay, go back now, Yuqi said. I will give you a few days to think about it. You don't have to make the choice now. Yes, sir. Gong Sunyi turned around and walked away. Seeing his back, Yuqi sighed inwardly. Gong Sunyi was too proud. He wanted everything to be perfect, but he couldn't make it perfect this time. If Gong Sunyi was willing to concede and spend all his effort in practicing alchemy, Yuqi would teach Gong Sunyi everything he knew and give him a good wife. But Gong Sunyi was like an extremist. Yuqi knew he would definitely mind Yuqi's pregnancy. So why did he insist? The two went back to the dinner as if nothing had ever happened. After a while, Yuqi announced, for those who have made the alchemy rank, I will give you 3 days to decide. I will support any decision you make. 3 days later, anyone that wants to join me can come directly. Everyone nodded. Top talents like Di Kai and Yen Jun raised their glasses too, feeling a bit curious. Why didn't Yuqi make them decide right now? In such an occasion, most people would definitely choose to stay in the city lord's office. 3 days was enough for other schools to draw these talents over to their side. Gong Sunyi looked calm but was actually very upset. He knew the 3 days was for him. The conference has ended, but I still want to see more. Chu Jijiao smiled attractively and said, Today, we have so many talents here. It's a good time to have another competition, isn't it? You have too many ideas, said Yen Jun. He looked at Bai Luli by his side and asked, How are the 2 headmasters of the Holy Ji Palace? They are well, Bai Luli replied with a smile. The 2 chiefs that Yen Jun had mentioned were number 1 and number 3 of the Barren Sky ranking, respectively. I've heard that the top chief hasn't come out for a long time. Is he still practicing in isolation? Di Kai asked. Our head chief is always mysterious like this. I have no idea either, Bai Luli replied with a smile. Di Kai smiled meaningfully. Others might have had no idea, but people like Di Kai knew that the number one on the Barren Sky ranking had been badly hurt. He didn't reveal the truth and just smiled at people. Among the top 10 on the Barren Sky ranking, other than number 2, the Ice Temple, the other 9 are all connected to the people here. You are right. Yen Jun scanned the crowd. The first and second were Bai Luli's Grandmaster and Master. The fourth was Bai Luli's father. Huang Jioga's father was the fifth. Zhuge Mingyue's father was the sixth. The seventh was Yi Futian and Yu Sheng's master. Qi Yu was the eighth. Su Kei, the ninth successor, was here too. Bai Luli was the 10th. Almost half of the 10 people were close to Bai Luli. Among people here, who will be the future top 10? Di Kai smiled and glanced at Di Gang by his side. Actually, they didn't know that the successor of the second was here too. This meant that the Barren Sky rankings top 10 or their successors were all here. Chapter 631. After the banquet ended, the crowd left. Yi Futian's group also returned to their inn, Shuiyi and Luo Fan following them back. Along the way, Shuiyi appeared to be depressed and Yi Futian naturally understood why. After the banquet ended, the crowd left. Yi Futian's group also returned to their inn, Shuiyi and Luo Fan following them back. Along the way, Shuiyi appeared to be depressed and Yi Futian naturally understood why. It was already late at night. In the yard, under the moonlight, Yi Futian told Shuiyi, "Brother, there are still 3 days, the situation can still change for the better. You've already seen Gong Sun Ye's attitude. He isn't going to give up. The tradition of the alchemy conference has continued for many years. Moreover, Yu Qi has personally promised him that as long as Gong Sun Ye doesn't give up, nothing will change." Shuiyi could not think of any means to overcome the situation. In today's alchemy conference, he had already tried his best but was unfortunately unable to come in first. During the feast, Yu Qi took Gong Sun Ye aside for a period of time and gave him 3 days to consider afterward. "City Lord, you must be wavering as well, and brother should know the reason better than me. You sacrificed everything when participating in the alchemy conference and came in second. Yu Qi must be considering brother as well," Yi Futian said. Shuiyi looked at Yi Futian. Previously, he had nearly died at the hands of the people from the City Lord office. It was Yu Qi who had protected him without caring about the repercussions and asked him to escape to somewhere far away. "Brother, what happened between you and Yu Qi? How could you be this foolish?" Yi Futian asked, speechless. "Luo Fan and I went to the Fire Mountain to cultivate. She was there as well, so we ran into each other. You know, your fifth brother and me, we were only messing around with her, but we did not expect her to be so passionate. After some time, I fell in love with her, but at that time, I did not know her identity. When she gave herself to me, I swore that I would take care of her for life. For that period of time, we were very happy and freely cultivating together until we were found by the Alchemy City Lord Office's experts. It was then that I discovered she was the daughter of the 8th on the Barren Sky ranking." Yu Qi Shuiyi's expression was pained as he continued, "I know that she lied to me, but I am not a fool. I naturally understood that she really loved me or she would not have given herself to me. In that time, I could feel her joy and cheerfulness. Although we did not interact for long, I understand her character. She is headstrong and dedicated. If she marries Gong Sun Ye, I don't know what the outcome will be." Yi Futian nodded. Even though Yu Qi knew that she would be engaged to the first in the alchemy conference, she still had relations with Shuiyi, evidently because she was unhappy about having an arranged marriage. From this, one could see how headstrong her nature was. She was defying her father. Yu Qi is the daughter of the Alchemy City Lord, the 8th on the Barren Sky ranking. There is nobody who can help me. Even second sister is powerless to change the situation, so I could only take part in the alchemy conference." Shuiyi sighed as he said, "However, nothing has changed. A lot has changed. From my perspective, if brother did not participate in the alchemy conference, there would truly be no hope. Yuchi might even not let brother off the hook then. The situation now already has hope for reversal. Let us continue thinking, there will definitely be a way out, Yi Futian said. There were still 3 days. As long as the situation was not set in stone, there would be hope for change. Shui nodded, but he still felt despair that it was impossible to change anything. Little brother, rest early, Shui said as he left with Luo Fan. In the courtyard, only Yi Futian and Hua Jieyu remained. He raised his head and looked at the moon in the sky, his hands behind his back as he thought. How should he resolve the current situation? As he continued thinking, he felt irritated. If Gong Sun Yi was unwilling to give way, it would be a dead end. He sat on the floor and took out his soul guqin and started playing. The guqin melody was harmonic and calmed him down. He knew how well the brothers in the cottage treated him. Back then, when he entered the cottage, he was only 18 and rash. At that time, everyone treated him like their own little brother and doted on him, especially second sister. His other brothers also protected him when he was surrounded by strong enemies and never allowed him to suffer. However, that day in the Holy Ji Palace, he wanted to tell his second sister that he was growing and becoming stronger. Now that fourth brother had such a situation on his hand, he naturally wanted to do his part, but there was no room for him to interfere. His fourth brother was willing to risk his life for it. Would he really have to personally witness the tragedy unfold? The guqin melody appeared insufficient to calm him down. Hua Jieyu walked to his side and leaned silently on his shoulder. She knew that he was in no state of mind to play the guqin right now. The guqin strings quivered gently and Yi Futian stopped playing, stretching out his arm to hug the beauty beside him. Fox, we are actually very lucky. Yi Futian said. Hua Jieyu nodded gently, her head sliding down to Yi Futian's lap, where she laid quietly. She said in a tender voice, although we've been through a lot, we are now together. However, I don't know if fourth brother can make it through this turmoil. He will, Yi Futian replied softly. 2 years ago, at the end of your sparring session, you wrote your entire life story in a tune. Can you play that tune for me again? Hua Jieyu looked at Yi Futian and asked gently. Yi Futian looked at the beauty before him and lowered his head, kissing her on the lips. He smiled and replied, sure. After saying that, he crossed his legs, bringing Hua Jieyu higher into his chest. Yi Futian strummed the guqin strings with his fingers and the guqin melody started again, from Qingzhou Academy where it all started. That one tune was all that mattered that night. The second day at dawn, a huge commotion started in the largest city in the southwest, the Alchemy City. The news from yesterday's alchemy conference had spread across the entire city. Everyone was discussing it, not just about the alchemy ranking, but also about Shui and Yushi. There were countless people who were there yesterday. The person who had left the deepest impression on them was not the first on the alchemy ranking, Gong Sun Yi, but the second, Shui. The impact that he gave them was too strong, from the first impression of just playing around to sacrificing his life spirit to create a ritual implement and coming in second. Moreover, he had a relationship with Yushi. This kind of story was the kind that most people liked, so it had been spread by countless people. Many people were wondering if Gong Sun Yi would give up and give Shui and Yushi his blessings. At dawn, another piece of news started circulating. Today, the emperor family was organizing a banquet and had invited all the experts on the alchemy ranking. As the two strongest factions in the alchemy city, the city lord office and the emperor family both wanted these experts. Since the city lord office had given them 3 days to consider, the emperor family naturally wanted to win them over as well. In the inn, Yi Futian was practicing his punches in the courtyard. Hua Jieyu sat beside him, her head on her knees with a mellow beauty. Her eyes had a tender look in them as she silently watched his figure. At that moment, Yi Futian was filled with vigor. Yesterday, when he played the guqin tune, he unknowingly broke through his spiritual energy and entered the grade 3 noble in his sorcery, which was an unexpected surprise. practicing his fists at dawn was a habit that he had long developed. He hoped that his martial arts could also break through together with his sorcery. Futian, at that moment, Yi Shaoshi walked over and called out to him. Yi Futian looked at him and replied, "Good morning, seventh brother." Yi Shaoshi stared at Yi Futian, feeling as though something was different today. The emperor family has organized a banquet today and invited those on the alchemy ranking. Not long ago, there were people who came to invite fourth and fifth brother. The two of them have made their way there, Yi Shaoshi said. A glint appeared in Yi Futian's eyes. The emperor family also wanted to win over the top 100 in the alchemy conference. He suddenly thought though the emperor family and city lord office both resided in the alchemy city and their ancestors had good relations, over the years, even though they still protected the reputation of the alchemy city, competition was inevitable. If that was so, the emperor family would probably try means and ways to win over Gong Sunyi. Gong Sunyi would naturally be unhappy about fourth brother and Yushi's matters. It was possible that he would involve the city lord office in his rage. If he joined the emperor family, what would happen then? As he thought about the possibilities, Yi Futian's mind became more active and he said, since they're inviting the people on the alchemy ranking, it's only natural for brother to go. Di Zhou from the emperor family said some unfriendly things yesterday, moreover. Yi Shaoshi paused, evidently worried. Seventh brother, it's not like you can stop fourth brother from going to the banquet, Yi Futian replied. Yi Shaoshi's gaze wandered over as Yi Futian continued, fourth brother is the second in the alchemy conference, nothing will happen to him, let's just wait and see how it goes. Yi Shaoshi could only nod. I'm going out for a walk, Yi Futian said as he left the courtyard, walking over to where Su Ke resided. Is anything the matter? Su Ke saw Yi Futian and asked, smiling. Does the Tingxue house have informants in Alchemy City? Yi Futian asked. He had heard that the Tingxue house's underground faction was all around the entire barren state. Yes. Su Ke nodded. In today's emperor family banquet, can they monitor what is happening? Yi Futian asked Su Ke again. Su Ke stared at Yi Futian, then smiled casually and said, sure. Do me a favor, Yi Futian requested. Afterward, Yi Futian left Su Ke and invited everyone to go to Alchemy City for a walk. They weren't sure if he did it intentionally, but he selected an area near the emperor family's residence. At that moment, it was exceptionally lively in the residence as all the geniuses had come to the residence. In name, the emperor family had only invited the experts on the alchemy ranking, but in reality, they had also sent people to invite many other geniuses in all regions of the alchemy city. The teenage geniuses from the southwest region of the barren state had all gathered in the emperor family's residence. It was a sight to behold. At that moment, outside the glorious emperor family residence, Shui Yi and Luo Fan had arrived. Brother, it's not a good idea for us to be here, Luo Fan said. I know, Shui Yi nodded and continued, but I still want to try. Why go through all this pain? Luo Fan sighed. They had already avoided a calamity on the alchemy conference. Gong Sunyi evidently did not want to give in, as seen from yesterday's banquet. However, the guy was really a bastard, since he had already gotten first in the alchemy conference, there was no need for him to be so fixated on it. Was it just because he did not want to lose face? Chapter 632. In the emperor family residence, the crowd had arrived a long time ago and the banquet had already been prepared. During the banquet, there was good food and wine and even beauties performing dance and musical instruments. The geniuses who had come all took their seats and the person in the first seat was not an elder from the emperor family, but the first in the emperor family's younger generation, Di Gang. In the emperor family residence, the crowd had arrived a long time ago and the banquet had already been prepared. During the banquet, there was good food and wine and even beauties performing dance and musical instruments. The geniuses who had come all took their seats and the person in the first seat was not an elder from the emperor family, but the first in the emperor family's younger generation, Di Gang. Today's banquet was different from yesterday's. They had not invited sage plane figures from all around, but they had invited the experts on the alchemy ranking and the Barren States Southwest region's geniuses like Li Futu, the Xiangji and siblings, Su Hongxiu, Xie Ji and many others. Since they were all from the younger generation, it was inappropriate for elders to be present and it would make them more formal, so it was natural that Di Gang took over as the host for the guests. Moreover, Di Gang's identity held sufficient weight. Everyone knew that he would be in charge of the emperor family in the future, for this teen was reputed to be the number one in the Barren States Southwest region. His position in the emperor family was the same as Bai Luli's position in the White Cloud City. When Shui Yi and Luo Fan arrived, many other people were already there. Luo Fan scanned the crowd and saw Gong Sun Yi. He was sitting right next to Di Gang, and the two of them seemed to be discussing some matters. Seeing the two of them arrive, the crowd stopped their chatter and looked towards them. "Have a seat." Di Gang smiled faintly, showing Shui Yi and Luo Fan to their seats. The two of them did not stand on ceremony, walked straight to a vacant seat. "Today, the emperor family has invited all of you as guests. Please do not act like strangers, and enjoy yourselves," Di Gang said. Melodious music played in the middle of the banquet and a group of voluptuous beauties started to dance, leaving them in admiration. "We have beauties and good wine, how can we not enjoy ourselves?" Someone smiled and said, "The dancers in the emperor family residence are indeed outstanding. Today, we have many renowned beauties with us, how can these dancers be called outstanding compared to them? If the goddess pavilion's Su Hongxiu dances, they would all pale in comparison," Di Gang said nonchalantly, glancing at Su Hongxiu. "I have also heard that the goddess pavilion can win over an entire city with just a dance. I wonder when I will be able to witness it." Gong Sun Ye's gaze also landed on Su Hongxiu as he said, "If everyone is so interested, Hongxiu will dance to hype up the atmosphere." Su Hongxiu smiled as she said. The crowd was immediately interested and someone said, "If we could have the honor of seeing Miss Hongxiu's dance, I will have no regrets coming here." Everyone knew Su Hongxiu's name, but it was rumored that she had never danced in public before. Could it be that they were about to experience a feast for their eyes? "Step down," Di Gang looked at the dancers and said. Immediately, they stopped. Su Hongxiu smiled and said, "No need, they can just assist me." "Please." Di Gang nodded his head and showed an inviting gesture to Su Hongxiu. It was rumored that back then when Chu Ji had danced, she had created a huge commotion in the Barren States Southwest region. He wanted to see exactly how much appeal the goddess pavilion's dance had. Su Hongxiu removed her outerwear, revealing a sexy skirt. Her snow-white skin was barely visible and she put on a mask on her face, then walked into the center of the dancers. She smiled at the crowd through her beautiful eyes, then started her dance regime. With just a smile, many people felt as though their souls were about to be sucked out of their bodies. When she started twisting her body, there was a mysterious power that descended upon them. Su Hongxiu's dance appeared directly in their brain, as though she was right in front of them. As the wind blew in their faces, there was a fragrance in the air. As her sexy body wiggled around, every action attempted to seize their soul, every expression was charming to the bone, causing everyone to shudder like their bodies were being electrocuted. It was as though her dancing body was the last thing left in the entire world. Luo Fan felt his breathing speed up and his body heated up. He closed his eyes, not daring to continue watching. With his will, he could feel that he was sinking within her dance, unable to maintain his composure. However, even after he closed his eyes, her figure continued to appear in his brain and would not leave. The banquet became exceptionally quiet. Di Gang's gaze could not move from her, he finally knew how terrifying the disciples from the goddess pavilion could be. Even he could feel himself losing control, as though her every movement, every smile had turned into a spiritual imprint and was embalmed into his brain. "Miss Hong, that's enough," Di Gang said. His voice had a mystical power in it as it rumbled in the crowd's ears. It caused many people to regain their sanity. Su Hongxiu did a slight twirl and stopped her dance. Smiling, she removed her mask, revealing her seductive face. At that moment, many people felt as though they could not control themselves and wanted to surrender themselves to her. "I hope all of you have enjoyed yourselves." Su Hongxiu bowed lightly and went back to her seat. Hongxiu. Yu Ming sat beside Su Hongxiu with an expression of infatuation. Winning over a city with one dance, entertaining indeed, Di Gang marveled. Many people had not yet recovered from the dance and were still looking at Su Hongxiu. If they could bring her home, they would be able to admire her every night. How joyful would that be? I will probably never forget Miss Hongxiu's dance for as long as I live, at that moment, Gong Sunyi said. He raised his cup towards Su Hongxiu and said, "A toast to Miss Hongxiu." Mr. Gong Sun is too kind. Su Hongxiu raised her cup and blushed, making her even more alluring. Gong Sunyi stared at her face. At that moment, he was thinking, Su Hongxiu is on par with Yu Shi in looks, but she is more seductive and has natural charm. If I could get her in my bed, what a glorious thing that would be. As for Yu Shi, that bitch. Gong Sun, you're about to marry a beauty, it's not appropriate for you to say such things now. It's better not to make City Lord Yu angry, someone said jokingly. That's true. Gong Sunyi smiled and nodded, continuing, I will watch my language. Are you really preparing to marry Yu Shi? Di Zhou looked at Gong Sunyi and asked. Why not? Gong Sunyi said. Of course, it's only natural. However, the person who came in second in this alchemy conference is also going to enter the City Lord office to cultivate, Di Zhou said, looking toward Shuiyi and smiling. He then said, Brother Shuiyi, if you enter the City Lord office, it's better to let go of your obsession and give them your blessings. Many people who heard Di Zhou's words had suspicious expressions. If Shuiyi continued to pursue Yu Shi after he entered the City Lord office, it would be a disgrace to Gong Sunyi who had married Yu Shi. After hearing Di Zhou's words, Gong Sunyi's expression became grim. I will not give up, Shuiyi said. He put down the wine glass in his hand and looked towards Gong Sunyi, saying, Gong Sunyi, you and Yu Shi have never met each other and have no feelings for each other. Why force yourself? For you and Yu Shi, this is unfair. You are the first in the alchemy conference. Even if you give up the marriage, you can still enter the City Lord office, become City Lord Yu's disciple, and be highly valued. In the future, you will become an influential figure in the world of armorers. Gong Sunyi lightly sipped his glass of wine, his eyes looking downwards, avoiding Shuiyi. He had a grim expression. Gong Sunyi, what my brother said is not wrong. Why force it if you have no feelings for her? There is no lack of outstanding girls that you can meet in the future, Luo Fan also said. Gong Sunyi, I'm begging you, Shuiyi continued. Gong Sunyi smirked and put his glass down. He said in a low voice, begging me? Then why don't you kneel? As he said that, he had a merciless look in his eyes as he stared at Shuiyi. Bringing this up in public to humiliate him? After yesterday's matter had spread, countless people in the alchemy city were discussing the matter. His reputation had been completely ruined. There was no honor in being the first in the alchemy conference, only shame. All this was given to him by Yu Shi and Shuiyi. Shuiyi's grip on his wine glass tightened, causing cracks to appear on the wine glass. He stared at Gong Sunyi and said, If I kneel, will you agree to give her up? Brother! Luo Fan shouted. That depends on how sincere you are, Gong Sunyi sneered as he said. Shuiyi glared at him. In his entire life, he had never knelt down to beg to anyone. However, Yu Shi already had his child. If Gong Sunyi were to marry Yu Shi, he could not imagine what the consequences would be. Many people looked towards Shuiyi and saw his body shaking. Could it be that he was actually intending to kneel? However, that fellow had almost given up his life during the alchemy conference, it was probably possible for him to kneel as well. It looked like Gong Sunyi bore a huge grudge. Shuiyi stood up. Luo Fan stared at Gong Sunyi and said, Brother, can't you see that he's humiliating you on purpose? Even if you kneel, nothing will come out of it. Shuiyi clenched his fists. He knew as well, but he thought about Yu Shi and he had no other choice. Gong Sunyi, you're really pitiful, Luo Fan sneered and said. Even if you marry Yu Shi, with my brother and Yu Shi's relationship, you think that you'll dare touch her even if you enter the city lord office? Crack. The wine glass in Gong Sun Ye's hand shattered. Luo Fan's words had hit a sore spot. Gong Sun Ye, you can enter the emperor family and bring Yu Shi out of the city lord office. Di Zhou transmitted a message to Gong Sun Ye. It was a good chance to win him over. Gong Sun Yi suddenly smiled and stopped looking at Shui Yi, instead, indulging in his wine. At the same time, he transmitted a message to Shui Yi, saying, I heard that she has your child. If he did not dare to speak about this matter, Shui Yi was unlikely to as well. Whoever said it would die. Shui Yi glared daggers at Gong Sun Yi. The two of you have humiliated me like this. Very well. Gong Sun Yi continued to transmit his message. In the past, I thought that the city lord's precious daughter Yu Shi was untainted and pure, but now. Rest easy, although she has already been deflowered, her looks are still top quality and her skin is fairer than snow. I will take good care of her for you and be gentle towards her. As long as she is my woman, she can't possibly resist me forever. And your child, I will take good care of him. Shui Ye's expression became extremely cold in an instant. Gong Sun Yi was unwilling to give up, not because of his feelings for Yu Shi, but because he felt that he had been humiliated and had a twisted mentality. He wanted to take revenge on him and Yu Shi. His thinking was not wrong. Gong Sun Yi had exceptional potential and was a perfectionist, however, to him, this matter was a huge humiliation. So, he wanted revenge. One day, when she's lying under me, guess how I'll treat her? Gong Sun Yi continued to transmit his message with a cruel tone. Bang! A wild aura erupted from Shui Yi. He could finally not bear it anymore as Gong Sun Yi revealed a cruel smile. If Shui Yi continued to pester Yu Shi, he would lose face completely. Shui Yi, what are you trying to do? As they felt his aura, many people looked towards Shui Yi with amused expressions. Would he actually dare to fight here? This is the emperor family residence. Di Zhou looked coldly at Shui Yi and said. Brother, Luo Fan called out to Shui Yi. What had Gong Sun Yi said to his brother? Bang! A spell erupted immediately, engulfing Gong Sun Yi. Unbearable. Not long after, Yi Futian, who was not far away from the emperor family residence, received news that Shui Yi and Luo Fan had injured others in the emperor family residence and had been sieged, leaving them heavily injured. As Yi Futian heard Su Kei's words, he looked in the direction of the emperor family residence, saying in his heart, sorry, brother. Will everyone accompany me? Yi Futian looked at the people around him and asked. Sure. They all nodded. The group then moved in a flash towards the emperor family residence. Chapter 633, In the Emperor Family Residence, the banquet was already a mess and had suffered catastrophic destruction. Most of the people at the banquet had already stood up, looking coldly at the two figures sitting on the floor. They were Shui Yi and Luo Fan. The two of them were sitting with their backs to each other. They were dyed in blood and had lost every semblance of strength. However, the strange thing was, Luo Fan still had a smile on his face as he asked, Brother, do you feel better after venting? In the emperor family residence, the banquet was already a mess and had suffered catastrophic destruction. Most of the people at the banquet had already stood up, looking coldly at the two figures sitting on the floor. They were Shui Yi and Luo Fan. The two of them were sitting with their backs to each other. They were dyed in blood and had lost every semblance of strength. However, the strange thing was, Luo Fan still had a smile on his face as he asked, Brother, do you feel better after venting? Shui Yi raised his head and looked at the sky with a smile of self-mocking. This was the barren state after all, not the eastern barren territory nor the cottage. Here, they felt powerless. You can still smile. Di Zhou walked forward and said ruthlessly. Luo Fan looked at Di Zhou and said, Why can't I smile? You can't possibly kill us. We came in second in the alchemy conference and have already agreed to enter the city lord office. Assaulting and injuring others in our emperor family and ruining our banquet. Even if you've already entered the city lord office, You still need to give us an explanation, Di Zhou smirked as he said. Luo Fan looked at him derisively and turned around, ignoring him. Gong Sun Yi, even if you make such a decision, you're just creating a lose-lose situation. Why go to such lengths, Luo Fan said indifferently. Gong Sun Ye's expression became extremely grim. How impudent, many people commented as they looked coldly at Luo Fan, including those who had participated in the alchemy conference. They were extremely unhappy with Shui Yi and Luo Fan. Even though Shui Yi came in second by sacrificing his life spirit to forge a ritual implement, he was ultimately not from the armorer world. Moreover, he had illicit relations with Yu Shi before this, which made them very unhappy. After all, before the alchemy conference began, nobody knew who would come in first. Impudent? Luo Fan's gaze swept across the crowd as he continued, I'm not referring to anyone in particular, but you all are trash. My brother and I have just mastered the foundation of alchemy and we're already able to obtain second on the alchemy ranking. All you armorer family disciples still have the nerve to siege us. You're a group of idiots. Asking for trouble. Strong auras started to descend one after the other and a palm slammed towards them, sending the two of them flying. Shui Yi and Luo Fan no longer had any strength to resist and they both spurted out blood. They laughed and crawled up, continuing to sit there, looking coldly at the person who had struck out at them, Lu Wei from the Lu family. Kid, I'll remember this, Luo Fan looked at Lu Wei and said. At that moment, Gong Sun Yi slowly stood up and looked at Shui Yi and Luo Fan, then said, the alchemy conference has a tradition that the person who comes in first will win the hand of the city lord's daughter in marriage. It is a tradition that has been honored by countless generations and was also personally set by the city lord office. However, the two of you have committed a grave mistake before the alchemy conference. Moreover, the two of you have not repented and have repeatedly threatened me to give in and even injured me. Today, everyone at the banquet has witnessed it for themselves. That's right, I can be a witness for brother Gong Sun Yi, Zhou Xing chipped in. Gong Sun Yi was the first on the alchemy ranking and would be a representative figure for the armorer world in the future. Li Futu and the rest looked at Gong Sun Yi. What was he trying to achieve by saying these? I can bear it no longer. Gong Sun Yi walked towards Shui Yi and looked arrogantly at him, saying coldly, according to the past years, I will marry Yu Shi. That is why I will no longer allow anyone to tarnish my wife's reputation. As long as you swear that you will never harass my fiancé for as long as you live, I will not pursue today's matter further and will let the two of you leave. Many people had interested expressions. Was he going to deal with Shui Yi? Moreover, using Yu Shi's reputation as a reason was indeed a great excuse. What if I don't agree? Shui Yi raised his head and asked Gong Sun Yi. I have said it, I will not allow anyone to tarnish my fiancé's reputation. As Gong Sun Yi said that, a flame palm print raised Shui Yi from the ground and the terrifying flames rushed into Shui Yi's body, causing him to have an extremely pained expression. That is why you better agree, Gong Sun Yi cruelly demanded. At that moment, everyone could feel the icy aura on Gong Sun Yi. He was really going to deal with Shui Yi. With his arrogance, he was unable to accept Shui Yi continuing to woo Yu Shi in the future. It would be a humiliation to him. I did not expect you to be this despicable, Shui Yi told Gong Sun Yi in a scornful tone. Gong Sun Yi had probably enraged him to strike first to obtain the moral high ground to deal with him. However, how many people had participated in today's scheme? The emperor family who had organized today's banquet, were they also involved? It had turned out as Luo Fan had expected, the banquet had been a trap. More flames entered Shui Yi's body, causing his face to contort in agony. His entire body was turning crimson and he was in the utmost pain. However, Gong Sun Ye's expression was exceptionally calm and he had no emotion in his eyes. He said emotionlessly, if you still do not agree, I take it that you will continue to tarnish my fiancé's reputation in the future. If so, I will have no choice but to permanently destroy your powers. You're serious? At the side, Luo Fan sat up and glared at Gong Sun Yi. Gong Sun Yi looked coldly at the other party and revealed a look of contempt. Nobody could fault him for taking action, He was the first in the alchemy conference. Even after he had destroyed Shuai's powers, nobody could touch him even if he chose to join the city lord office or emperor family. As for Shuai and Luo Fan, their support was the Zhuge family's Zhuge Mingyue. Zhuge Mingyue aside, even the Zhuge family could not interfere in the alchemy city's matters. When Luo Fan saw Gong Sunye's expression, he already understood. As expected, he was still too naive. This banquet was a trap set just for them. Di Gang sat quietly by the side watching everything unfold. He did not say anything nor stop anyone. At that moment, a person walked over quickly and said, "Yi Futian's group has barged in. Should we stop them?" Di Gang raised his head and looked at the person, then said, "Let them in." A similarly mocking expression appeared on Di Zhou's face. What a coincidence, he had just invited them over to the emperor family the other day at the alchemy casino. Surprisingly, they had come over today. Li Futu, Xiang Zhiqin and the rest raised their heads and looked in the distance. They saw a group of figures moving towards them quickly and the group soon reached. It was Yi Futian and the Holy Ji Palace's disciples. Yi Futian stared at Gong Sunyi, cold killing intent flashing across his eyes. "Sister Yun, Jioga," Yi Futian called out. The two of them understood his intentions and Yun Shuisheng took out her hail scepter. In an instant, the frost intent filled the area and the temperature dropped to the point of freezing. An unending snow shrouded the world and the heavens. Gong Sunyi and Shuai's bodies were also the same. At that moment, Gong Sunyi felt as though his blood was about to freeze. At the same moment, Huang Jioga took out a bow and fired it immediately. The arrow flew through the air and turned into a golden ray of light that assaulted Gong Sunyi. Instantly, Gong Sunyi felt an extremely dangerous aura. He felt as though his soul was about to be frozen, followed by an arrow that flew through the air, attempting to take his life. Under the terrifying frost intent, everyone's thinking appeared to slow down and their gazes were rooted on Yi Futian. He had dared to attempt to kill Gong Sunyi without saying anything. He had really wanted to kill Gong Sunyi right there. Gong Sunyi did not dare to continue dealing with Shuai and his body suddenly ignited and turned into red-hot flames. His entire body was surrounded by a flame armor and he speedily retreated. While he was retreating, he raised his hand and fired a huge flame palm print. Bang! The flame palm print exploded and the arrow continued flying through the flames and landed on the armor, sending Gong Sunyi flying backward and vomiting blood. All this happened in an instant. From Yi Futian arriving and giving the order, there was no trace of hesitation or questioning. What arrogance! Di Zhou shouted in anger. Many people took out their ritual implements, but they saw Yi Futian walking forward, holding the polearm of divine destruction in his hand and walking towards Shuai and Luo Fan like a gust of wind. Zhou Sheng was very close to Shuai and he had a brilliant flame armor on his body that looked like a divine vermilion bird, rushing towards Yi Futian. As he raised his palm and struck out, a giant vermilion bird claw descended from the sky. There was a terrifying vermilion bird shadow that appeared in the sky and its grip could tear a person to shreds. Yi Futian raised his head and looked coldly at the other party, raising his polearm of divine destruction and striking out. With a violent bang, the entire area was enveloped by a terrifying pressure. At that moment, Zhou Xing felt that it was hard to even move. The vermilion bird shadow was crushed by the polearm and with a huge crash. The crowd saw Zhou Xing's body being forcefully slammed to the ground. He lay on the ground, twitching and vomiting blood. With that one strike, he would be lucky to be alive after that. He's gone crazy, many people thought, stunned. They were taken aback by Yi Futian's rod strike and stared at him blankly. Around them, figures started to appear one after another, and their horrifying auras descended upon them. In a second, the entire banquet area was surrounded, and everyone could feel the suffocating pressure emanating from Sage Plane experts. Take them down! Di Zhou shouted in a frenzy. His body was shaking and burning up with a raging fire. Yi Futian dared to be so insolent and do such a thing in the emperor family residence. The moment he arrived, he did not ask to do anything and went on a killing rampage immediately. This was a slap to the face. The dreadful auras descended from the skies and surrounded Yi Futian's group. Yi Futian's expression became even colder and he stood beside Shui, saying, "The Holy Ji Palaces, Battle Sage Palace, Sage Dozhan's disciple, Yi Futian." The crowd was shocked and looked at Yi Futian. What did he mean? The other people understood his intentions. Huang Jioga looked at the crowd around them and said, "The sovereign family, Huang Jioga." Tingshui House, Su Ke, a lazy voice sounded. Bang! With a huge sound, Yuan Zhan stepped forward and held, "The Taihang Mountain, Yuan Zhan." The undying old man's successor, Phoenix also said softly. As the voices continued to sound, each voice made the crowd's hearts skip a beat. They finally understood what Yi Futian meant when he shouted that out. My brother was bullied in the emperor family and no one stepped in. Now, I want to see if the emperor family's sage plane experts dare to move, Yi Futian said coldly. Di Zhou frowned and his gaze swept across their group. He only now realized that the factions behind this group of people were enough to rattle the alchemy city. Chapter 634, Li Futu and the onlooking crowd all shuddered at the shocking scene. Li Futu and the onlooking crowd all shuddered at the shocking scene. Yi Futian and Yu Sheng, disciples of Sage Dozhan, the seventh on the Barren Sky ranking. Huang Jioga from the sovereign family, where the fifth on the Barren Sky ranking was from. Su Ke, the successor of the ninth on the Barren Sky ranking. The Taihang Mountains King and the Undying Old Man were also in the top 20 of the Barren Sky ranking. Not to mention Sage Dozhan and the Sword Demon's disciples were also around. On the other hand, the Emperor family's Di Kai was only 12th on the Barren Sky ranking. Those who had participated had ashen expressions. They did not care about Shui and Luo Fan because the two of them did not have any backing. Their strongest background was only the Zhuge family's successor Zhuge Mingyue. Yi Futian was also only a disciple of the Holy Ji Palace. Moreover, in an argument between disciples, the Barren State's elders would not interfere. Therefore, even if he was a Holy Ji Palace disciple, they did not have any fear and had more competing emotions than respect. However, when Yi Futian and his friends shouted out those words, they no longer only represented themselves but had revealed their backings. This way, everyone would have to think twice before aggravating them. No matter who you are, coming to the Emperor family to create trouble is not allowed, a strong sage plane figure said from the air, his aura continuing to surround Yi Futian and his friends. Yi Futian looked at him coldly without any fear. Today, the Emperor family has organized a banquet, and my brother came to the banquet and was assaulted by a group. As the organizer of the banquet, the Emperor family allowed my brother to be treated like that, and nobody came out to stop them. I'm suspecting that the Emperor family did it intentionally. Yi Futian continued, if you want to interfere from now on, it's not me who is not following the rules, but the Emperor family bullying the younger generation. You can go ahead and try. Di Gang sat there watching the scene quietly. He was rather surprised that this disciple who had entered the Holy Ji Palace 3 years ago would be so overbearing in the Emperor family residence. He waved his arm and said, "Step down." A glint appeared in the Sage Plane expert's eyes as he looked at Di Gang, then rapidly retreated. No matter who it was, since Di Gang was here, they would not be able to do as they pleased. Your brothers broke into a rage, injuring others and ruining the banquet, so we naturally need an explanation. Today, we need them to stay in the residence, Di Gang explained coolly. However, under his cool tone, there was unquestionable sovereignty. The Holy Ji Palace's disciple. Although he felt that a battle with another noble plane was pointless to him, since the palace's disciples had come, he did not mind. With him around, the interference of a sage plane expert was unnecessary. Yi Futian looked at him nonchalantly, then turned to his brother Shui and asked, "Brother, what happened?" Gong Sun Yi transmitted a message humiliating me and provoking me to fight, so I did, Shui replied. Who among them participated? Yi Futian asked again. The guy that you beat up, and him. Luo Fan pointed at a few people. The people he pointed at were all from the Alchemy City's clans and some of the geniuses from the Alchemy Conference. There were a few of them who had wanted to join the Emperor family and had fought to express their loyalty. Yi Futian's gaze swept across all of them. As they crossed gazes with Yi Futian, they felt a chill go down their spine. A noble plain figure actually made them feel fear as Zhou Sheng was still on the floor, unable to move. When is it your turn to poke your nose in my brother and Gong Sun Ye's matters? Yi Futian smiled cruelly and his gaze swept across the crowd, a terrifying martial arts will erupting from his body. He then held his polearm of divine destruction in his hand and walked towards the Alchemy City's geniuses. Many people stared at Yi Futian. He actually dared to start trouble here. Yu Sheng and Yuan Zhan stepped forward on his left and right, Huang Jiuge, Su Ke and the rest followed up as well. A terrifying aura engulfed the area. They had all gotten elite ritual implements in the Alchemy Casino and they had all taken them out now. Those people who had assaulted Shui Yi were all aghast and looked coldly at Yi Futian's group, taking out their ritual implements as well. As the members of the Alchemy City's clans and strong armorers, they naturally had no shortage of ritual implements. One of the clan's genius held a dragon staff in his hand, a dreadful flame spiritual chi forming from it. Terrifying flame dragons shot forth from it, flying towards Yi Futian's group. Each flame dragon was unbelievably huge and covered even the skies and blocked out the sun. Yun Shuixing raised her head and looked into the air, her hail scepter appearing in her hands. As she cast her spell, ice rivers appeared in the air, freezing the area, and the flame dragons were also frozen into giant ice statues. How dare the Holy Ji Palace's disciples be so arrogant? Take them down, Di Zhou said coldly. There were hundreds of geniuses from all over the state here today, and just the Alchemy City had many members of elite clans here. Yi Futian's group was daring enough to declare war on them. After all, this was the Emperor family residence. Another figure stepped forward. This time, it was an extremely rabid genius. He held a fire god broadsword in his hand and slashed out towards the heavens. The golden flames split the area open, cutting the ice rivers in half and heading straight towards Yi Futian's group. An elite noble plane figure using a ritual implement in an outburst of strength. Its strength was horrifying and the light blade swept across the air, cutting through everything. Yuan Zhan stepped forward, the wolf fang bat in his hand becoming larger. With a loud roar, his golden body walked forward and struck out into the air. It was the 9 heavenly attacks which could split the heavens. The rod strike collided with the light blade in the air, causing the air to vibrate violently. Yi Futian's body flew like a gust of wind towards a person that Luo Fan had pointed at. There were people who tried to attack from the side, but Su Ke and Yi Futian's body turned into afterimages, the sword shadow moving as fast as lightning, causing the people who tried to step forward to retreat. There were people casting spells from afar, but the arrows in Huang Jiuge's hands shot through the air and assaulted them at lightning speed. As he saw Yi Futian descending, the person quickly retreated, but what he felt the next moment was an unparalleled pressure and a force that made him feel like the air had frozen. His moments became exceptionally slow and even his thoughts had dwindled. He knew that it was a terrifying will assault. Next, he saw a brilliant rod striking towards him. He panicked and took out his ritual implement to block the attack. Crash! A deafening sound could be heard as he landed on the ground with his ritual implement. His ritual implement fell out of his hands and the impact had caused cracks to appear in the ground. God knows how violent that attack was. He spat out a mouthful of blood and felt as though all the bones in his body had been broken, then fainted, causing those watching the battle to be disconcerted. Yi Futian was too overbearing, barging straight into the Emperor family residence and injuring people. Was he going to get back at all the people who had dealt with his brothers? Even Shui Yi and Luo Fan were stunned. After not meeting for a few years, their little brother was no longer the teenager that needed their protection. It was as if they had just realized that their little brother was the Holy Ji Palace's elite genius and many of the influential figure's successors in the barren state were willing to be by his side. He had exceptionally high rallying power and dared to barge into the Emperor family residence to stick up for them. While Luo Fan was touched, he also had a strange feeling. Why did he have a feeling of déjà vu? Back then, when Yi Futian was bullied by the Qin dynasty, it was he who had protected his little brother. Afterward, third brother and fourth brother Shui had come down from the mountain and blocked the door of the Qin dynasty to stick up for their little brother. Now, it seemed that their roles had reversed. It was their little brother sticking up for them. What a tragic tale. At the side, Li Futu and the rest watched the erupting battle with unease. Was this the pride of the Holy Ji Palace, Yi Futian? He actually had such a savage side. Lu family, Lu Wei. Yi Futian held the polearm of divine destruction in his hand and moved once again, landing in front of Lu Wei. Just now, Luo Fan had emphasized this person, so he must have done quite some damage to his brother. You dare to be so insolent? Lu Wei saw Yi Futian move towards him and his expression paled. Seeing the polearm of divine destruction covering the skies, he felt an exceptionally heavy force on him. He wanted to dodge, but an absolute pressure crushed down on his body, rendering him unable to move. He could only watch as the polearm of divine destruction got closer, and Lu Wei's expression became ghastly. Bang! With a giant impact, Lu Wei's defenses were shattered and his body was struck by the polearm of divine destruction. His body was flung towards the side and crashed rapidly into the banquet tables and chairs, blood streaming from his body, twitching as he laid on the floor. Many people looked towards Lu Wei. That strike probably left him half dead. Yi Futian did not stop. He continued forward, spells flashing and solidifying the air. The polearm of divine destruction swung repeatedly and bodies were flung left and right. In the blink of an eye, many people had been injured, especially those who had injured Shui and Luo Fan. They were severely injured by Yi Futian and he did not pull his punches. Yi Futian would naturally not go easy on them. When was it their turn to interfere in his brother and Gong Sun Ye's matters and add insult to injury, bullying his brothers? Since they liked to bully others, it was time for them to face the music. This lunatic. Many people were appalled. Even those who did not participate were intimidated and stepped backward, not wanting to be dragged into it. This fellow was too violent. With his polearm of divine destruction, he was unstoppable and swept everyone. At that moment Di Gang, who had been silent all the while, put down the wine glass in his hand. He stood up and in an instant, a fearsome aura erupted from his body and the heavens howled. The aura in the air seemed to transform and become chilly. Li Futu and the guests looked towards Di Gang. Was the Alchemy City's #1 person among the younger generation finally going to step in? Di Gang stepped forward and flew into the air, his might surrounding the area. Behind him, a golden space appeared and unbearable heat and sharpness emitted from it. His life spirit transformed into Dharma and blinding rays of light fired towards where Yi Futian was. With a huge crash, a brilliant phoenix shielded Yi Futian. It was Phoenix's defensive spell, shielding him like the wings of a phoenix. However, the blinding rays penetrated the phoenix's wings and shot right through it, continuing forward. Phoenix's expression paled, but Yun Shuixing had also come over. An imposing frost intent appeared from her hail scepter, finally blocking the blinding rays from continuing forward. Huang Jioga stepped towards Di Gang. His expression was sharp and a terrifying martial arts will erupted from his body. He wanted to experience for himself the strength of the barren state Southwest region younger generation's #1. To be compared with Bai Luli, how strong was he? His martial will transformed into a will illusion, creating battle chariots that rushed forward to assault Di Gang. Di Gang looked casually at Huang Jioga. In the golden area, a blinding glow emitted and under the crowd's astounded looks, a sun chariot drove out from within. The imposing chariot dragged the sun along, the chariot itself forged out of razor-sharp weapons. It flew down from the air, crushing and burning everything in its way. Chapter 635. The will illusion that Huang Jioga had released was shattered and his battle chariots were all destroyed and burnt to nothingness. The sun chariot was simply too strong. Nothing could stand in its way and there was even the divine bird Golden Raven within the sun. The will illusion that Huang Jioge had released was shattered and his battle chariots were all destroyed and burnt to nothingness. The sun chariot was simply too strong. Nothing could stand in its way, and there was even the divine bird Golden Raven within the sun. Li Futu stared at Di Gang. Was this the number one person in the Alchemy City region? This was the first time he had seen Di Gang in action. Undoubtedly, Di Gang was stronger than him. The chariot should have been forged by assimilating his life spirit into his martial will. It had endless power, both in the burning power of its spell and the execution ability of its martial arts. Huang Jioge felt a tremendous pressure and released his life spirit. A shadow of the Renhuang appeared on his body, causing him to appear as though the Renhuang had descended, the Renhuang's sword in his hands. He slashed out into the air with the sword and instantly, an even stronger force appeared. The horrifying martial will swept across everything, a destructive storm appearing in the surroundings and finally crushing the oncoming sun chariot. However, Di Gang's expression did not change. He stepped forward and endless light rays surrounded his body, like a god. He personally directed his chariot forward and in an instant, he had descended in front of Huang Jioge and used close combat techniques. At that moment Di Gang appeared omniscient, as though he was God and could destroy everything. Huang Jioge raised his hands and the Renhuang sword slashed out. A tyrannical martial will appeared in the air, but Di Gang acted as though nothing had happened, riding his sun chariot and crashing down. The front of the sun chariot appeared to have an extremely powerful divine arms ritual implement on it, speedily rotating and crushing everything. His might continued downwards and Huang Jioge was knocked back, not daring to face him. Yun Shuixing flew through the air, the hail scepter in her hand firing spells and freezing the area. However, Di Gang's life spirit also had a ritual implement assimilated into it. The golden raven in the sun did not fear any frost power and a flame armor appeared on his body, completely unaffected by the strong freezing spell. Invincible, many people looked at Di Gang and thought he was too strong, as expected of the elite genius reputed to be the number one in the Alchemy City region. At that moment, an illusion appeared. The crowd could only see a gray spot as an imposing killing intent burst forth. It was Su Quebec. He appeared beside Di Gang, the sword in his hand slashed out. It was a spell-breaking, killing strike. Di Gang frowned and his arm stretched forward. In an instant, his arm had transformed into a divine arms ritual implement, refracting blinding rays and grabbing Su Kei's sword. As screeching-scraping sounds sounded out, the sword slashed on his arm, sparks flying. Di Gang was unable to grab Su Kei's sword, but the sword was unable to sever his arm. The two of them crossed blows in a flash, as though nothing had ever happened. What a fast blade, what a strong defense. The crowd was amazed. However, both Huang Jioge and Su Kei were only grade 2 nobles. How could they hope to stand up to Di Gang, who was already at the pinnacle of the noble plane? Even if they were both elite geniuses, Di Gang's reputation was not inferior to any of them. Bang! With another huge thud, coupled by a scream of agony, Yi Futian's polearm of divine destruction had once again sent another person flying into the distance. Yu Sheng and Yi Wuchen were standing guard next to him, clearing all obstacles for Yi Futian. Presently, Yi Futian was flying in the direction of Gong Sun Yi. Gong Sun Ye's expression was extremely grim. The ritual implement in Yi Futian's hands had overwhelming power. As he saw Yi Futian flying across the air towards him, the armor ritual implement on Gong Sun Ye's body covered him, and he saw Yi Futian crushing down on him with the polearm of divine destruction. At that moment Di Gang had made his way over in unstoppable fashion. Shadows of chariots appeared in the area and descended in front of Yi Futian, but were all destroyed by the polearm of divine destruction. An exceedingly brutal aura erupted from Di Gang. He donned the golden raven armor, and divine sun rays shone from his body. As he rode his chariot, he was covered in divine light and the golden raven grew to the size of the actual divine bird. Its wings sliced through the air as Di Gang raised his arm, the chariot crushing through everything and colliding with Yi Futian's rod. A destructive force swept the area and the divine bird covered the skies, its wings sweeping forward, knocking the polearm of divine destruction back and causing Yi Futian to fly backward and stand in the air. Yi Futian stared at Di Gang, Huang Jiuge and the rest appearing by his side. True to his reputation, Di Gang's strength was indeed overbearing. Such a coward, first on the alchemy ranking. Yi Futian looked at Gong Sun Yi who was hiding behind Di Gang. Gong Sun Ye's expression became ghastly. The first in the admission examination for the Holy Ji Palace 3 years ago was actually humiliating him. However, he did not have a ritual implement that could match Yi Futian's. The power that the polearm of divine destruction could release in Yi Futian's hands was unexpectedly huge. The Holy Ji Palace's disciples are just a group of people who rely on their ritual implements to flaunt their power? Gong Sun Yi replied coldly. Yi Futian smirked and replied, since you wanted to kill my brother's matters are my matters. 2 days from now, I will challenge you at the place where the alchemy conference was held to a no ritual implements battle to the death. If you are able to kill me, the Holy Ji Palace will not interfere. On top of that, my brother will leave Alchemy City. Gong Sun Yi, do you dare to accept? Gong Sun Yi looked coldly at Yi Futian. Yi Futian was challenging him. The first on the alchemy ranking with no ritual implements? Since you're so eager to die, I'll grant you your wish, Gong Sun Yi replied cruelly. The battle will naturally have many influential figures observing. Alchemy City will be the judge. 2 days, I'll wait for you, Yi Futian replied coldly. He turned around and said, brothers, let's go. Did I let you leave yet? Di Zhou said ruthlessly. Do you even have the right to stop me? Yi Futian turned around and looked at Di Zhou, then turned to the emperor family's Di Gang and said, if you want to come as well, I will accept. After saying that, he turned around and left. Huang Jiuge and the rest looked at the crowd, then smiled and walked out. Such a battle was highly anticipated. They naturally understood Yi Futian's intentions to invite the people from Alchemy City to observe. A battle to the death where the Holy Ji Palace and other factions did not interfere was the best way to settle Gong Sun Ye's matters. Di Zhou looked at Di Gang and heard him reply, 2 days later, I will be there. The crowd was astounded. Li Futu looked at Yi Futian's group as they left. The Holy Ji Palace's disciples were even more overbearing than he had expected. Xiang Zhiqin similarly watched Yi Futian leave. This was the rising star of the Holy Ji Palace. 2 years ago, he had shot to fame in the sparring session. With his awe-inspiring courage and determination, he had brought his brothers out from the emperor family and started a battle to the death. Gong Sun Ye's expression was extremely grim. He was previously struck by a sneak attack and was suppressed. He would use Yi Futian's life to wash himself of his humiliation. His previous crisis was because the other party had used his ritual implement. In a real battle, how could he possibly lose to him? At that moment, on the ground, many people let out groans of agony, evidently in a lot of pain. A few people had even fainted and could not be moved. Yi Futian. Those who had been injured had looks that desired revenge. There were also geniuses among the Alchemy City who had cold expressions while looking at the figures who had left. These Holy Ji Palace geniuses were really arrogant, they had just come in and did as they liked. After Yi Futian's group walked out of the emperor family, he looked toward Shui and Luo Fan and asked, brothers, are you all right? I knew that the feast was a trap all along. Fourth brother was too rash, Luo Fan replied. It's okay as long as you're fine, Yi Futian replied. Little brother, you seem to come a little too quickly. Luo Fan said with a questioning tone. Not long after the incident broke out, Yi Futian arrived. Why was it such a coincidence? How did Yi Futian know that they had gotten into trouble in the residence? Perhaps someone did it on purpose. Su Kei said lazily, did we fall into your scheme? We're all brothers here, Yi Futian smiled and replied. So, our being injured was also part of your scheme? Luo Fan looked at Yi Futian with a fake smile. Nothing of the sort. Yi Futian would definitely not admit it. Luo Fan smiled and did not say anything more. This little fellow was getting more and more crafty. However, he naturally understood Yi Futian's intentions for doing so. He had probably guessed that Gong Sunyi would intensify the situation due to his hate for Shuiyi. Only by doing so would he have a justified reason to kill the alchemy conference and alchemy rankings first, Gong Sunyi. Once Gong Sunyi was dead, there would be no stopping his fourth brother. What a bold and crazy idea. The alchemy conference was held once every 10 years, and the first on the alchemy ranking would be a symbol for that generation as the future of the armor world. However, Yi Futian wanted to kill that symbol. Yi Futian did not want to do that either. There was originally a peaceful method to settle this. His brother and Yushi already had feelings for each other, and moreover, they already had a child. If Gong Sunyi gave in, the most that would happen to him was that his reputation would be mildly affected, but he would still remain as a shining star of the armor world and be thanked by the two of them. However, Gong Sunyi was too arrogant and prideful. He could not tolerate such a stain on his record, so he insisted on marrying Yushi even though he did not have feelings for her. Moreover, from Gong Sunye's attitude, he evidently involved his fourth brother in his anger and hated him too. Yi Futian did not stop his brother from attending the banquet to see how things would progress. He had seen Gong Sunye's killing intent. When the emperor family released the news, all of Alchemy City was in an uproar. Following up on the piece of news a few days back, when the Holy Ji Palace's disciples had defeated Li Futu's team in the alchemy casino, Yi Futian had barged into the emperor family and sparked an astonishing dispute, injuring many of the clan's geniuses and brought Shuiyi out. He had also challenged Gong Sunyi to a battle to the death and allowed Di Gang to be there as well. The time was 2 days later, which was exactly the timing that the Alchemy City Lord Yu Qi had given them to decide. The location would be outside the City Lord office, where the alchemy conference was held. This was so that everyone could watch the battle. What a crazy notion. Where did Yi Futian get his confidence from? He dared to provoke the two most outstanding individuals in the alchemy city, the number one in the younger generation, Di Gang, and the number one armorer, Gong Sunyi. The influential figures did not leave and their curiosity was sparked after hearing the news. Were the teenagers nowadays so arrogant and wild? The matter should have been because of Yushi. As expected, after Shuiyi had sacrificed his life spirit to forge a ritual implement that day, the matter had not yet ended. In an elegant courtyard in the City Lord office, the City Lord Yu Qi was there, looking at his daughter in front of him. She was extremely beautiful and did not wear loose clothing, so he could see her belly bulging slightly. "What are you here for?" Yushi's tone was frigid. Today, Shuiyi went to the emperor family to attend a banquet and was involved in a conflict with Gong Sunyi and was injured, Yu Qi said. Yushi turned around and looked at her father coldly, replying, "Are you happy about that? I have given them 3 days. These 3 days are for Gong Sunyi, but at the same time, they are also for him." Yu Qi looked at his daughter and replied, "However, he seems to be powerless to settle the issue, and his little brother has stepped in instead." He barged into the emperor family residence and brought them out and challenged Gong Sunyi to a battle to the death. A ripple appeared in Yushi's eyes. Was it possible for the situation to change for the better? "In 2 days, you can go watch the battle," Yu Qi said. That battle would decide many people's fates. Chapter 636. 2 days later, at the place where the alchemy conference was held, the region around the alchemy conference, countless people's gazes gathered once again. Today, Yi Futian would challenge Gong Sunyi to a battle to the death right here. 2 days later, at the place where the alchemy conference was held, the region around the alchemy conference, countless people's gazes gathered once again. Today, Yi Futian would challenge Gong Sunyi to a battle to the death right here. Gong Sunyi, the number one in the decennial alchemy conference, first on the alchemy ranking. Not only was he an elite armorer, but he also had exceptionally high cultivation potential, a trait of an elite genius. Yi Futian had potential that would be envied by the heavens and was the rising star of the Holy Ji Palace. He had come in first in the admission examination 3 years ago with a cultivation level of a grade 9 noble. If it was merely a contest of potential, Yi Futian would win by a mile, but Yi Futian's current cultivation level was lower than Gong Sun Ye's. Therefore, the outcome of the battle was difficult to predict. At that moment, the crowd was in intense discussion. Yi Futian was a savage person, barging into the emperor family residence to save his brothers. Moreover, he had injured all the Alchemy City clan disciples who had participated in assaulting his brothers. There were some people who still had multiple broken bones and were recuperating in their clans. Even the elite clan's members dared not settle the score with Yi Futian. After all, they had teamed up to bully Yi Futian's brothers, and there was nothing wrong with Yi Futian getting vengeance for them. If their elders interfered, the nature of the issue would change. They had heard that when Yi Futian's group descended on the emperor family residence, there were sage plane experts from the emperor family who had tried to interfere. Yi Futian's group had revealed their identities, and the sage plane experts had not dared to move. The people around Yi Futian did indeed have terrifying backgrounds. Gong Sun Yi had arrived very early. He was sitting on an alchemy pillar, bathing in the flames with his arms behind his back, waiting silently. Since he was already here, Yi Futian would be here soon. Looking at the city lord office in front of him, the building that he had once resolved to step into, he dreamed of becoming a legendary figure who would be the benchmark for the entire armorer world. He had been working hard towards his goal, and every step he took had been down to earth, even to the point of perfection. He had always felt that he was worthy of the best, and his woman would naturally be the best. The city lord's daughter Yushi had always been his ideal path companion and extremely suitable for him. However, the incident during the alchemy conference had embarrassed him, and Yushi's conversation with him had infuriated him. His pride had been trampled on. Therefore, he wanted revenge on Shuiyi and Yushi. He would make them repent for their actions. In the emperor family residence, he had wanted to aggravate Shuiyi and find an excuse to destroy his powers. However, Yi Futian's appearance had trampled on his pride once again. The Holy Ji Palace's disciple had barged into the emperor family residence in an overbearing fashion, ignoring all of them, and taken Shuiyi away, challenging him to a battle to the death in the process. He had no reason to reject, so here he was, to kill Yi Futian. After Yi Futian had died, he would naturally not let Shuiyi off. Many of the emperor family's experts had come, including Di Gang. That day, he had already witnessed the strength of the Holy Ji Palace's disciples. They were indeed very strong. However, he had not seen Yi Futian's true strength, as Yi Futian had relied on the strength of his ritual implement to dominate everyone. He was very curious how strong this Holy Ji Palace's rising star actually was. Li Futu, Yu Ming, Qi Lian, Su Hongxiu and many of the Alchemy City's geniuses were also there. Following that, some influential figures came, some watching in secret. Bai Luli did not leave the Alchemy City. He stood on the steps, wanting to watch the battle. In the palace, Yi Futian had suppressed his younger brother Bai Zhe completely. The Sage Palace was considering allowing Yi Futian to enter the Sage Hall to cultivate in the future. This meant that Yi Futian had potential that was not inferior to Hua Fan. Entering the Sage Hall meant that Yi Futian would become an influential figure in the palace. In the future, he might even become a palace lord. Since he was also in the Alchemy City, he naturally had to witness the battle for himself. Zhuge Mingyue had naturally already made her way over a long time ago. The emperor families Di Kai, Chu Ji from the Goddess Pavilion, Yan Jun from the Fire Emperor Palace, and many other influential figures who had not left Alchemy City appeared once again. Many people were stunned that a battle between two people from the younger generation could attract the attention of so many elite figures. Yi Futian and Gong Sun Ye's battle can be considered a battle between the Holy Ji Palace's most outstanding young disciple and the armorer world's elite genius. It seems to have some symbolic meaning, Yan Jun said coolly. He had heard from Li Futu that Yi Futian was not easy to deal with. I heard that Yi Futian barged into the emperor family residence 2 days ago. Di Kai, what do you think about this little fellow? Chu Ji looked towards Di Kai and asked. He's not bad, Di Kai replied calmly. I heard that before he left the residence, he threatened Di Gang to be here as well. How is Di Gang compared to him? Chu Ji smiled and asked again. Di Gang's future is that legendary plane. In the entire barren state, there is only one person in his generation that can compete with him. Bai Luli, Di Kai replied nonchalantly and continued, if Yi Futian wants to obtain that right, he still needs to prove himself. How many years has the barren state not had a Saint Plane expert? You should naturally understand what that legendary plane means. Chu Ji smiled faintly. If a saint appeared, he could command the entire barren state. Let's watch and see, Di Kai replied casually, seeming to have a lot of confidence in Di Gang. Chu Ji smiled. A saint, huh? How many people dreamed of that? How much effort had the Holy Ji Palace, the holy land of the barren state, put into trying to achieve that? Bai Luli was reputed to be the person with the most potential in the Holy Ji Palace in many years. Would he be able to achieve the palace's goal? Suddenly, a commotion started in the distance and a group of people walked over. It was Yi Futian's group. They're here, countless people thought as their gazes landed on Yi Futian. This genius from the Holy Ji Palace was not fighting for the palace today, but for his brother. However, regardless of the result, he still represented the Holy Ji Palace. Shui is here as well. Many people looked at Shui, who was beside Yi Futian. His fate lied with Yi Futian. Everybody understood why this battle came about. Little brother, Shui looked at Gong Sun Yi on the alchemy pillar region and said to Yi Futian. Fourth brother, after you enter the city lord office, you must remember to help me forge some weapons, Yi Futian said. Shui was stunned and the serious atmosphere was no more. The battle was about to begin. What was this fellow thinking about? The deed isn't even done and you're already thinking about how to fleece your brother's ritual implements. Luo Fan was also speechless as he looked at Yi Futian. We were ordered by our master to come to the alchemy city, but in reality, it was for ritual implements. We have gone to the alchemy casino and many people have gotten good ritual implements, but Yu Sheng and I have not found ours yet. Brother, I'm depending on you. Yi Futian patted Shui on the shoulder. In the future, his brother would be the city lord's son-in-law, he needed to sow his seeds first. The city lord will personally forge a ritual implement for the top 3 in the alchemy conference. No matter whether you win or lose, the ritual implement is yours. Shui looked at Yi Futian and reminded him, be careful. Brother, I'm going to take your word for it. Don't regret it, Yi Futian replied seriously. A ritual implement personally forged by the city lord. What a steal! His fourth brother would have the barren state's best armorer as his father-in-law after he had married Yushi. Would he lack ritual implements? Robbing him was a must. No regrets, Shui replied speechlessly. This kid. It's a gentleman's promise then. Yi Futian smiled and walked towards the alchemy pillars. When Yi Futian entered the alchemy pillar region, a group of figures walked out from the city lord office. The city lord Yuchi had come with his beloved daughter, Yushi, to watch the battle. However, many people were wondering who the city lord and Yushi rooted for. In name, Gong Sun Yi was the alchemy conference's #1. He had already obtained the right to marry Yushi and could be considered her fiancé. However, Yushi was probably praying for his defeat. They did not know what the city lord's attitude was though. Yi Futian meets Senior Yu. Yi Futian bowed towards Yuchi and continued, a few days ago, in the emperor family residence, Gong Sun Yi and others combined forces to assault my brother, causing my brother to be injured even into today. Today, I am representing my brother to challenge Gong Sun Yi in a battle to the death. If I die in the battle, it is because of my weakness, and the Holy Ji Palace will not take revenge for me. My brother will also never step into Alchemy City. I hope that Senior can be the judge for this battle. Yuchi looked at Yi Futian, he was this confident. What about you? Yuchi looked at Gong Sun Yi and asked. If I die in the battle, it is also because I am equally weak. My family will not interfere, Gong Sun Yi replied. I will be the witness for this battle. Begin, Yuchi replied coolly. As his voice landed, Yi Futian looked in the air at Gong Sun Yi who was on the alchemy pillars. At that moment, a brilliant light erupted behind Gong Sun Yi. He released his life spirit, it was a catalogue and it devoured the spiritual qi in the air frantically. Within the catalogue, there were images being formed, and divine beings appeared in the sky, flying down from the alchemy pillars towards Yi Futian. In an instant, a giant vermilion bird figure appeared above Yi Futian's head, its wings slicing down like sharp blades towards Yi Futian. At the same time, it spat out destructive flames from its mouth. Absolute territory, Yi Futian said in a low tone. Around his body, divine light surrounded him and turned into starry brilliance. Chapter 637, This. Countless were shocked to their cores hearing Yi Futian's voice. Isn't Yi Futian doing too much with his words? Is Gong Sun Yi really no match for him? This. Countless were shocked to their cores hearing Yi Futian's voice. Isn't Yi Futian doing too much with his words? Is Gong Sun Yi really no match for him? Gong Sun Yi stood on top of the alchemy pillar, looking at Yi Futian with cold eyes. Yi Futian walked towards him, and each step seemed to carry immense pressure as if Gong Sun Yi was being invaded by some kind of mental powers. He was a grade 1 noble while Yi Futian's aura suggested that he was at most a grade 3. It was totally unexpected that Yi Futian would make the first move to attack him using spiritual will powers. It was deemed an insult like no other. However, when Gong Sun Yi felt the invading will coming at him, he was shocked to find himself almost paralyzed. An illusion was welling up in his mind, as if his body was being locked in place by some intense power, rendering him totally immobile. Gong Sun Yi had no way of moving his body, and even his blood seemed to stop flowing, rendering everything in him still. Boom! Violent flames burst forth all of a sudden. Gong Sun Yi's will seemed to have taken the form of some kind of fire god, attempting to burn everything in its path and dispel the power controlling him. Yi Futian extended his hand. Tremendously fearsome will and spells descended at the same time. He recalled from one of Sage Daozong's lectures that noble will could have been seen as some kind of area of effect power. The top-class genius cultivators were capable of creating their own areas of will, by dissolving different types of area of effect abilities, which enabled them to conjure super powerful spells. Yi Futian had been capable of creating several types of abilities within the 3 years of training in the Holy Ji Palace. When he advanced to grade 3 noble plane, his areas of will became even more powerful, so much so that no conventional grade 1 noble wouldn't have been able to resist his powers. Gong Sun Yi was incredibly well known, but that was due only to his prowess as an armorer. Alchemy City placed incredible emphasis in the armorer's art, and talented armorers enjoyed prestige like no other. While there was no doubt that he was a magnificent armorer of the highest order, his martial arts competency was nowhere near that of his capacity as an armorer. At the very least, when compared to Di Gang, Gong Sun Yi was way behind, so much so that he was hardly on the same level as Di Gang in martial arts. Gong Sun Yi's exceptional talents at the armorer's arts made him incredibly arrogant and insolent, yet he failed to understand that the city lord of Alchemy City, Yu Qi, did not get where he was, being ranked 8th on Baron Sky ranking, due to his proficiency as an armorer. Yu Qi was also an exceptional martial artist. If he had simply devoted all his time to hone his armorer's skills and let his mastery at martial arts rust, he would have never been able to get where he was. Yu Qi would have simply been made a servant, crafting ritual implements for others. Due to having too much renown as an armorer, and everyone around him hailing him as some sort of superior being, Gong Sun Yi failed to realize his lacking competency in the martial arts. Freeze, Yi Futian uttered. Gong Sun Yi felt everything around him go still in an instant. Even the flow of spiritual qi and his own thoughts threatened to cease moving altogether. The melding of powers was simply too strong, as the will and spell became one and resonated with each other. Gong Sun Yi burst his most powerful aura out, attempting to touch that terrifying power holding him in place. The wings behind him flapped and he took to the air. However, he soon saw a massive number of vines, enough to block out the sky, coming at him. Yi Futian conjured explosively dazzling golden vines from his hand, holding Gong Sun Yi still instantly. The vines coiled around Gong Sun Yi, suspending him in the air. When Gong Sun Yi's flames burned, golden flames jumped onto the golden vines, yet the flames failed to burn the vines. The fatal entanglement spell was evolved as well, and its power was several orders of magnitude higher than what it used to be. Countless eyes locked in one place as the hearts of many raced, bearing witness to what was taking place in the air at the moment. The one who ranked first on alchemy rank of Alchemy City and the champion of law battle 3 years ago clashed, and many have thought the fight to be one between two equally powerful titans, thus making it incredibly spectacular. No one would have thought the fight to turn out like this. It was slaughter. The unbelievably bright star of the alchemy conference, Gong Sun Yi, was being slaughtered by Yi Futian, who was of a lower plane. At the moment, the prestigious rank of number 1 in alchemy rank felt incredibly cheap in front of the proud son of the Holy Ji Palace. Shui Yi smirked at the scene and said in a lowered voice, "I sure as hell didn't expect our little brother to get this strong, just in the past few years." Brother, you seem to have been played," Luo Fan mumbled. Their worries had been for nothing. Furthermore, the act of Yi Futian asking for a ritual implement was now seen like one robbing the blind. "I have no problem with that whatsoever," Shui Yi said with a smile. He turned his eyes at the stairs, and his eyes met Yushi's. Both felt relieved as they knew that the fight left little to the imagination. Yi Futian stared at Gong Sun Ye's pale face above the alchemy pillar and looked utterly remorseless for beating Gong Sun Yi so mercilessly. He and both his seniors had asked Gong Sun Yi to give up, yet Gong Sun Yi simply told him to get lost. Gong Sun Yi went so far as to attempt to cripple his senior in the emperor family's residence. From the words of his senior, Gong Sun Yi had not truly wanted to marry Yushi, he had only wanted to exact his revenge. His immense pride drove him off the rails, making him go to insane lengths to get what he wanted. How did it turn out like this? Gong Sun Yi asked himself. He was reluctant to believe what was happening to him at the moment, but reality was cruel. He had no means of resisting Yi Futian whatsoever. "How, you ask?" Yi Futian looked at Gong Sun Yi and added, "That is because you're weak." Yi Futian clenched his fist as he finished. Gong Sun Ye's body shuddered violently, becoming stiff in the air without any way of freeing himself. He did not even have the right to fight back. "I'm the champion of the alchemy conference. I will train in the armorer's arts in the city lord office. Let me go, and I will give up." Gong Sun Yi begged Yi Futian for mercy. Many looked at him startled. So even someone as prideful as Gong Sun Yi fears death. "Since he is willing to give up, please just drop the matter," someone from the Gong Sun clan said. Yi Futian. Gong Sun Yi is the champion of this year's alchemy conference. You got what you came for. Just stop already, even Di Gang said from far away. Yi Futian's eyes sparkled. He heard a voice in his ear at the very moment, "Kill him." Yi Futian was stunned. The voice obviously came from Yuqi, the city lord of Alchemy City. He came to realize that Yuqi spoke with Gong Sun Yi that day, and it seemed that Yuqi was very irritated by Gong Sun Yi. As Yuqi gave the word, Yi Futian came to immediately realize what to do next. The golden vines were aimed at Gong Sun Ye's throat, and Gong Sun Yi yelled in response, "No! Stab!" Incredibly sharp vines were stabbed into his throat like swords. Countless people were shocked to their cores as they stared at the scene with dumbfounded eyes. Gong Sun Yi was probably the most pitiful champion of the alchemy conference in history. Yuqi watched the scene without showing any emotion. Everyone was given opportunities to choose their fates one way or another. Yuqi gave Gong Sun Yi a chance to choose, and he would have treated Gong Sun Yi like a student, just like what Yi Futian had in mind. However, Gong Sun Yi was simply too arrogant. As he chose his pride over the other options given to him, it was only natural that he suffer the consequences of his choices. Gong Sun Ye's body dropped to the ground, and the members of the Gong Sun clan stared at Yi Futian with vengeful looks. Yi Futian dispelled his aura and looked at the city lord office. He was thinking about the 3 days that Yuqi gave them to think about things. It was a move to give Shui Yi an opportunity, and it was also one given to Gong Sun Yi. If Shui Yi indeed had all his cultivation destroyed by Gong Sun Yi in the emperor family's residence that day, what would Yu Qi have done? Yi Futian had no way of guessing what was going on inside the mind of the Mighty One ranked 8th on Baron Sky ranking. As the City Lord of Alchemy City and the symbol of the world of armorers, he needed to stick to the traditions set by his predecessors and recruit geniuses for the City Lord office as well. The one who ranked first on the alchemy rank would have been the most suitable candidate for his daughter. As such, he probably would not have doubted any of his actions. However, Yu Qi opposed and rebelled against him. He was not able to do anything against his daughter. As such, he deemed Gong Sun Yi disposable in order to protect the reputation of the City Lord office and his daughter. It would have been the same for Shui Yi. As he said before, Gong Sun Yi was too arrogant and too insolent. They had spoken, and Gong Sun Yi refused to give up. That decision probably sealed his fate, one that was doomed to end in tragedy. Di Kai glanced at Yu Qi. He was curious as to what was going on in Qi Yu's mind at the moment. Does he feel any pity at the loss of the champion of alchemy conference? Di Gang was seen staring at Yi Futian. The Emperor family had decided to recruit Gong Sun Yi 2 days ago. With Gong Sun Yi defeated, there was a huge chance that he would have joined the Emperor family. However, Yi Futian showed no mercy. He went killing the one who ranked first on alchemy rank right there and then. Several days ago, you brought the students of the Holy Ji Palace and Huang Jioga to invade the Emperor family's residence. You injured quite a number of our people. Since you proposed a fight to the death with Gong Sun Yi, the Emperor family left you to it, Di Gang said slowly as he looked at Yi Futian. Now that you have won the fight, I think it is due time to settle the matter of you invading the Emperor family residence. Many lifted their head to look at Di Gang. It seemed like Di Gang was incredibly dissatisfied at Yi Futian killing Gong Sun Yi. Furthermore, given that he had invaded the Emperor family residence, it looked as if Di Gang was ready to move against him. I said it that day, come and I will indulge you. Yi Futian turned his eyes at Di Gang. The air felt stiff once again. Rumors had it that something like that actually happened. However, seeing was believing, and the scene of Yi Futian provoking Di Gang still sent shivers down many spines. Is that unparalleled genius from the Holy Ji place really trying to pick fights with the top figure of the younger generation in the southwestern region of Baron State, right after he killed Gong Sun Yi, the champion on alchemy rank? Di Gang was not Gong Sun Yi. He was no armorer, and he was a fighter through and through. His proficiency in the martial arts were leagues above Gong Sun Ye's. It was said that his prowess was proven in the Emperor family residence that day. When Di Gang made his move, there was simply no one who was able to stand in his way. Di Gang looked at Yi Futian as he took steps forward, making for the alchemy pillar area. He said, well then, let me have a look personally at what the mighty ones of the Holy Ji Palace are capable of. Everyone who invaded the Emperor family residence that day fought using ritual implements. That is hardly considered a true fight. Let us go about it as how it should be done then, right now. Is Di Gang trying to fight every single person from the Holy Ji Palace? Many were breathing hard. Di Gang was indeed the number one in Alchemy City. He remained just as overbearing even after witnessing what Yi Futian was capable of. Huang Jioga and all the others looked rather distressed. They were able to tell back in that day that Di Gang was indeed powerful. But fighting all of them all at once, all on his own. Is he trying to make a joke here? He remained standing proud in the air, scanning the battlefield but not fighting himself. Yi Futian stood in the air in silence without moving as well. Yi Futian was able to connect the minds of everyone in that battle back in Alchemy Casino using music, resonating them with one another. He isn't doing something like that today but simply let everyone fight their own battles. It is the same with Di Gang's side. No matrices are used to boost anyone. It seems like all they want is to fight each other as they are, without using amplification tools of any kind. Furthermore, both Di Gang and Yi Futian seemed to have isolated themselves from the fray. The battles there looked as if they had nothing to do with them. Many sported funny looks. Both of them seemed to have immense pride. The battles raged about in the area of the platform. Li Futu seemed to have been possessed by the vermilion bird and Huang Jioga looked like a descendant of Ren Huang. Both figures clashed and the space trembled violently in response. Qi Lian was a swordsman, and a golden dazzling greatsword seemed to have appeared between his hands. It went swinging about in the air in an attempt to cut everything in its way. However, Su Ke moved about like a mirage, clad in murderous intent, boasting incredible power. Yu Sheng, Zui Qianqiu, Yi Wuchen, Phoenix, and some others found their own opponents, and each of their fights looked earth-shattering. It was especially so in the fight between Yu Sheng and Di Zhou. While Di Zhou was formidable, he was being slaughtered by Yu Sheng and sent flying all over the place. Di Zhou spat up blood from his mouth and he looked pale. Despite the predicament with his little brother, Di Gang did not intervene. He simply observed everything taking place in silence. The Holy Ji Palace is the sacred ground of the barren state, and everyone who emerged from there is indeed the best the barren state has to offer, many mumbled to themselves as they watched the battles taking place. While the students of the Holy Ji Palace suffered a disadvantage in playing, they seemed to have gained the upper hand in the battle. There was no doubt that Huang Jioga was incredibly powerful. He fought Li Futu as a grade 2 noble. He was the first runner-up in the law battle 3 years ago. His tremendous capacity for combat seemed to once again speak volume of Yi Futian's powers. As the battles raged on, the ones at the side of Alchemy City began to see more and more losses, and it seemed like they were barely holding on. Di Gang, who had been standing in the air watching, swooped down on the battlefield. Blinding light was seen bursting from his body as he was clad in golden raven armor and a sun hung above him. The divine bird cried around the sun as it looked incredibly breathtaking. At that moment Di Gang's body became covered in overpowering might. Beams of scorching hot sunlight shot out, covering the heavens and bringing incredible pressure to bear down on everyone. The golden raven armor. Chapter 639, all of the Holy Ji Palace students on the battlefield, even Huang Jioga, retreated. They had all experienced Di Gang's powers firsthand, and he was indeed more powerful than they were. He was truly the genius of the highest order in the Alchemy City regions. His reputation preceded him and he had what it took to back his immense reputation. His unbelievably exceptional talents for combat made it so that even those ranked high on the law rank of the Holy Ji Palace would find him difficult to deal with. All of the Holy Ji Palace students on the battlefield, even Huang Jioga, retreated. They had all experienced Di Gang's powers firsthand, and he was indeed more powerful than they were. He was truly the genius of the highest order in the Alchemy City regions. His reputation preceded him and he had what it took to back his immense reputation. His unbelievably exceptional talents for combat made it so that even those ranked high on the law rank of the Holy Ji Palace would find him difficult to deal with. Di Gang proved himself to be the #1 genius in all of the southwestern regions of the barren state. While rumor had it that the prestige of both Li Futu and Gong Sun Yi were almost equal to his, the truth was that Di Gang's combat ability was several orders of magnitude higher than either of them. Di Gang stood proudly in the air, basking in the light of the golden raven and watching Yi Futian move, who was then attacking Qi Lian. Qi Lian ranked 4th in the alchemy conference. His combat ability was immensely high and there was no way Yi Futian would be able to easily overpower him. The fire and golden light around Qi Lian burst in a crazed manner and it seemed as if his body was being turned into a large painting. It was as if countless runes were coalescing into a matrix of sorts, forging a terrifying giant sword. Sword aura from all around him whooshed, and the golden light and fire resonated with the aura. The shadow of the rock descended upon Qi Lian and at that very split second, the space around him felt frozen. He then felt a very strong, oppressive pressure bearing down on him, freezing the space around him. Boom, boom, boom. Incredibly terrifying golden fires exploded in the air in an attempt to destroy that power that seemed to be placing everything around him under lockdown. However, he still felt incredibly heavy and cold, as if all forces around him made it a point to pin him down, preventing him from moving. Sharp, high-pitched ringing noises were heard, and appalling light burst from the giant's sword, tearing everything around it apart. "Go," Qi Lian uttered a single word with a cold voice. The giant's sword, under his control, went about tearing apart everything in its path, making its way to the rock. Vroom! The golden mirage was unbelievably quick as it zipped past the giant's sword. At that second, the giant's sword suddenly blew up into countless pieces of small rune swords, bursting with incredibly sharp sword will, attempting to tear apart the space. Despite his frightening speed, Futian was unable to evade the attack. The countless rune swords went for him, yet clanging sharp noises were heard soon after. There seemed to be an absolute defense field with Futian at its center. The rune swords zipped past the starlight, yet they were still unable to break his defenses. The rock soon descended upon Qi Lian. Qi Lian shouted. Using his body as the container, countless runes flashed about and spread all around. It was a dazzling scene to behold, like his body had been turned into a giant sword of alchemy. However, Futian, clad in the shadow of the rock, remained unfazed as he attacked. The blow landed directly onto Qi Lian's body, and it seemed as if the attack hit the giant sword squarely as well. Intense, heavy power burst suddenly as the giant sword blasted countless shimmering runes, trying to defend against the attack in a crazed manner. Powerful areas of will permeated the space around him, seemingly freezing everything around it. It was a power that came with intense pressure, as even Di Gang's speed seemed to have been considerably slowed. Di Gang had a strange look as he came to feel such power firsthand. He was surprised to find it nearly impossible to tell what kind of elements were used to create such a fusion power. That meant that what Futian pulled surpassed his current plane limit and gave birth to some completely new area of effect powers. It was a talent like no other indeed. However, that trick still proved inadequate. Vroom! Golden fiery wings spread and devastating power of flames burst in the air. An incredibly huge golden raven appeared and blocked out the sky. It seemed as if the space itself was being assailed by a pair of endless golden fiery wings, cutting the frozen space apart with a pair of wings like blades capable of cutting anything in its path, as Di Gang continued to come at Futian. Incredible pressure soon bore down. Di Gang's imposing figure soon descended upon Futian, and the golden raven covering his body lashed out with a claw of unparalleled sharpness, bashing hard into Futian's absolute territory. Tremendously terrifying starlight orbited around Futian, yet Di Gang's attack seemed to have tremendous penetration power. The golden flames seeped into his defenses, flaring about in the screen of starlight. Cracking noises were heard as the defensive power of the absolute territory shattered. The golden raven cried as it continued to tear at everything before it, heading straight for Futian. Golden vines were seen bursting out, heading for the golden raven. The attack was, however, quickly torn apart, and Futian backed away like a bolt of lightning. Despite Futian being a genius like no other, the difference in planes still makes it so that it is impossible for him to defend against Di Gang's attacks, many who were watching the fight noted to themselves. Di Gang's offensive powers were matchless among all nobles in Alchemy City, and he was second to none even when compared to all the nobles found in the barren state. You never had a chance right from the start, Futian replied, equally determined. But those were just words, and anyone could brag easily. A dazzling sun chariot appeared within the golden space. In an instant, scorching, sharp energy filled the space. The chariot seemed to have been built with divine arms, with a sun shining behind it and the golden raven perched within the sun. Go forth, Di Gang spat, and his life spirit let out a terrifying glow. A martial will illusion appeared within the space, and the alchemy pillars area seemed to be transformed into an ancient battlefield. The sun appeared high up in the sky, and the golden raven in the sun let out a long cry. The desolate battlefield contained the power to incinerate everything within it. At the same time, many chariots hurtled towards Futian. Di Gang had created a destructive martial will illusion. As Futian watched Di Gang, 3 streaks of light appeared. Instantly, the sun and moon hung high up in the sky along with the stars. The sun, moon, and stars had all appeared at the same time, in addition to Futian's rock spirit. The sight of it all made the hearts of many thump excitedly. Just how many life spirits did this guy have? Futian's heart skipped a beat too. Futian had released his Guqin spirit back when they were at the alchemy casino. Could it be that Futian had a life spirit possessing all the elemental powers? Futian saw the endless golden flames charge straight for him, filled with destructive scorching energy. The glow of the sun, moon, and stars behind him bled into each other, and it seemed like a special kind of willpower had been injected into them. Futian instantly became the center of that light, where a pure white fire began to burn. That fire was the white lustrous flame. The pure white flames burned throughout the space, and when the golden fire rained down upon it, the white flames even tried to capture the golden flames as energy for itself in order to stop it from reaching Futian. The chariots hurtled towards Futian in a deadly attack. Lightning crackled around Futian, destroying everything and attacking the chariots wildly, reducing them all to ash. But then, an ultimate chariot came rushing towards Futian, emanating a destructive glow. Di Gang was driving the chariot, and behind him, the light of the sun and the golden raven covered Futian and his Dozhan body. Streaks of golden light descended upon him, tearing through all of Futian's defenses and heading straight for him. The wheels of the chariot seemed to be made out of an extremely sharp ritual implement, making the turning wheels seem like divine blades that tore up everything in its path. Where the chariot passed, there were no signs of life at all. With such frightening energy descending upon him, though the chariot had not reached Futian yet, he could feel its terrifying destructive power. He dialed up his defenses to the max and threw out a series of punches. Each punch seemed to have a distinct spirit of its own. It resonated with the surroundings to create an incredibly powerful momentum, and in addition to the powerful martial will being released at the same time, the resulting energy created seemed almost like that of an emperor's. The divine ape began to shine with a dazzling glow, and its aura grew even more savage. As the chariot descended upon Futian from the sky, the divine ape gathered the energy in the surroundings and with a deafening roar, comet punches were sent flying towards it. Comet-like fists filled the air and crashed straight into the approaching chariot. The chariot tore through those fists effortlessly. It was like many stars blowing apart at the same time, and a bright light shone out across the vast space as the chariot continued advancing. However, the fists continued to pelt the chariot in an endless stream before the real fist shadow appeared. The resulting collision brought about a destructive explosion of energy within the space, with a blinding light which was painful to watch. It was like the sun itself had exploded within the sky. Some nobles in the crowd were even stunned by the sight. They felt a sense of awe at the high-level battle. Even a grade 1 noble could clearly sense how powerful those two were. The chariot was destroyed, and Di Gang was pushed back once again. He lifted his head to look at Futian. Before the battle, he had arrogantly assumed that no grade 3 noble would have been able to face off against him. This was not blind faith, but a sure knowledge of his own power. However, this disciple of the Holy Ji Palace was somewhat baffling to him. Di Gang was not the only one who was caught off guard. Everyone else had been as well. Even Su Kai and the others only found out how strong Futian truly was today. Over the past 2 years, he has broken through many of the relics at the Holy Ji Palace, but not once has he participated in a battle, commented Zhongli, who was also shocked. Everyone knows he has a special way about figuring out the relics. As such, many of the newcomers from his batch would go to him for advice, and he would always have a personal opinion to answer them with. It's unthinkable that he would be this strong already. He had been one of those who approached Futian for advice. Phoenix had done the same as well. That was why they had come to the alchemy city with Futian. For him to have such a variety of abilities, other than the body refinement techniques and the Dozhan body, he probably created them himself when he integrated his realizations of the relics into his own powers, Zui Qianqiu surmised. Everyone nodded in agreement. Yi Futian had probably created those new areas of will and spells on his own, along with that punching technique which also integrated his starry power. This level of talent was awe-inspiring. When it came to battle, Yi Futian was probably good enough to go up against Shimin Hanjiang, who was at the top of the law rank. The power Di Gang had shown so far was not inferior to Shimin Hanjiang's. Upon watching this battle, Xiang Jiqin, Bing Yi from the mortal world, Yan Jiu, and everyone else from the Sword Saint Villa was speechless. They could not believe that Yi Futian had gotten this strong already. Di Gang seems to be having quite a hard time. Chu Ji chuckled from where she was among the important individuals on top of the stairs. Di Kai's expression turned slightly ugly, but he felt a rush as well. Yi Futian was stronger than he thought. The energy coming from Yi Futian now didn't feel like a grade 3 nobles at all. It was even more powerful than that of a top-grade noble. However, victory would still be Di Gang's. So this is what you're so confident about? Yi Futian asked Di Gang, staring at him. Everyone's gazes hardened at the dig. Di Gang lifted his head to glare at Yi Futian before he continued, I've said before that if you were of the same plane as me, you wouldn't even be good enough to be my opponent. Now, it's my turn. Upon his words, Yi Futian stepped out impressively, standing tall and proud. As he moved, his Dozhan body moved along with his actual body towards Di Gang. With the release of a spell, the space seemed to freeze over, and an immense pressure bore down onto Di Gang. This energy was way stronger than the will he had experienced previously. The divine ape swung a fist forward. The sheer power of this punch sent shockwaves through the sky and headed straight for Di Gang. Di Gang was still clad in his armor. The golden raven appeared with a dazzling light and cried out to the heavens. Its sharp claws tore apart everything in its way as it charged forward. A strange state was instantly born. Within the barren, lifeless battlefield, a golden raven screeched amidst flames descending from the sky, and its claws glinted with the magnificent shine of a divine weapon that could rip through anything. The two attacks collided, and Di Gang was sent stumbling backward yet again. However, this time, Yi Futian felt cracks appear in the fists of his Dozhan body. At the same time, the bright light of the golden raven burned through the defenses of his absolute territory and came for him. Looking up, Yi Futian felt as if the illusion had grown even stronger. Sage intent, Yi Futian thought to himself. Di Gang was a top-grade noble, just one step away from becoming a sage. It was not surprising that he had understood sage intent at this level. He's gotten even stronger. Countless gazes turned towards Di Gang. He stood there proud as a god in the sky. Is he finally going to reveal the best of his abilities? If so, then the battle is probably going to come to an end, everyone thought. Many looked towards Yi Futian, only to see him laugh. Is this all you've got?